hang on, just let me get this to go. Okey doke.
I just didn't want you to
Thank you.
get bamboozled and not understand
Thank you.
what was going on.
Hello, Dorothy. Good. Actually, I should show you this. She knows, like, you know, it's gonna happen again. It's gonna happen again. Always something. Yeah, but that was the excitement of Saturday.
Can I say?
I know.
My son ran it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. The worst one is I remember when you smashed his hand off the part. Oh, I just like. Something else. What up?
Hello.
What's going on?
You know.
Hello, Mayor Pro Tem.
How are you doing?
I'm good. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good.
Good.
Much better.
Yeah? Sound better.
I feel better.
Did it linger? Did it linger for you, or?
Oh, yeah. Quite a while. Over 3 weeks.
Oh no.
I took, once I got an antibiotic, it cleared it right out. So, I mean, it did.
It's a long time to not feel good, though.
It did start out as a virus.
Okay.
But then it just lingered so long that I got a sinus infection afterwards. So,
That's terrible.
Ew. It's not fun.
No.
You're on the mend, though.
right, I am.
Not when it's like 95 degrees outside. It's like,
Yeah, summer cold.
so yeah.
Right.
Doesn't make any sense.
It was good. I was showing
Oh, Stephanie,
Nico took
I told you I probably wasn't going to go, but
on Saturday.
how did you?
So he was climbing a fountain.
I was going to ask Judy. I think she was there.
And so on the way down from the fountain, it broke off. And it fell backward. And it fell.
I've always been.
So he was at the ER. Yeah.
I just wanted to look interested.
So like that's how he was before.
Supposed to be interested, so.
He was all
Did you do the drawing?
he was worried that he had broken his
A lottery today?
stuff. But when I showed up, I was like, Nico, can you do this? He was like,
I always think that
not
if you're
broken.
alphabet,
it's not broken.
Dr.
So,
Dad.
so at the end of it, he was like, Daddy, I'm hungry. But when I dropped him off at school this morning, because it's still pretty busted
Do we
out
have a,
already. As of today.
do we have a second?
But when he shows up, he
Mayor?
runs over to his friend.
Do we have a second? I could go to the bathroom.
His friends are like that, showing him off, like just really proud of him. Yeah.
Is his face about taking time?
It's actually gone down pretty. It's gone down. So it's a lot better than it used to be.
Yeah.
I know.
That's really close.
But he's back to normal. Like he was doing things in the alley today before I came over here. Yeah, he says it hurts to like do stuff with his right hand, so he's trying to get out of right.
I mean, come on.
Right.
Oh, fun.
Oh, thank you. I'm good. Not too long.
Are you fine with those cards?
Yes.
Okay.
Thanks. I think I always pick the same prayer. It's 7:15. Come on.
Did she leave too? Did Mayor Pro Tem just leave?
She might. I wonder if she heard you. I mean, for pizza. Oh. I shouldn't talk.
They left.
Where'd they go?
You left that handbook.
Thank you.
So I put it
It's like 17.
I really enjoy reading it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Good lessons.
Yes. I've quoted them before.
Just here, right?
Good for you. I've had them quoted to me before. It's the inverse.
Just ask them on the mic.
Pardon? If council would take their seats. Does anyone see Mayor Pro Tem and Councilmember Barentine out in the back? I don't see them. Not sure what happened. They were in here.
15.
Don't see Mayor Pro Tem.
If council could please take their seats, we're ready to begin.
We generally try not to embarrass people when it's somebody else.
Thank you for being seated. I'd like to call this regular City Council session, September 3rd, 2019, to order. Please rise for the invocation, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance, if you are able.
Heavenly Father, grant us, your servants, the ability to consider all matters before us with honor to your grace. Let us tonight act as an expression of your will and in the best interest of Englewood's future. Our goal is not to control, but to serve the people of Englewood. This we ask in thy name. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Would the clerk please take roll?
Yes, ma'am. Member Sierra?
Present.
Member Barentine?
Present?
Member Cuesta?
Present.
Member Martinez?
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Russell?
Present.
Member Wink?
Present.
Mayor Olson?
Present.
All 7 present.
Thank you. Agenda item 5A is the minutes of the special meeting of August 15, 2019. Could I have a motion to approve the minutes?
I move to approve the minutes of the special meeting on August 15th, 2019.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Could I have a second?
I second.
Thank you, Mr. Sierra. Discussion, Ms. Barentine?
This is for the, just for moving the agenda item that we called a special meeting. And at the time, which it didn't make it on the minutes, I did object to taking a vote on just moving agenda items, and I didn't want to set a precedent for doing that. And so since it didn't make it onto the minutes, I would at least correct that to, I think that we need to have some guidance on whether an agenda item needs a special meeting and a vote of this council to move. I think that it only needs 24-hour notice, because I don't want to get stuck in doing some kind of deal where we go, well, that's what we've done before, so we need to do it in the future, and I don't want to do it just as if it were just for fun. So I'm not really sure if we could have the city attorney give us some guidance on whether we need to have a vote of this council to move an agenda item or not. I would like to make sure that we have something set so we're not setting a precedent.
Are you asking city attorney tonight to give advice on what we did in the past, or for the future, are you asking for there to be some more guidance?
Okay, then I'm not voting for changing an agenda because I don't believe it takes a vote of the council, and I think we're setting a precedent that we shouldn't be setting. Okay. So if you just note my objection to it.
City Clerk, does that make sense to you?
Yes.
All right, thank you. Please vote to approve the minutes.
All votes been cast. Let the record show 7 ayes.
Second, 5B. Could I have a motion to approve 5B?
I move to approve the minutes of the regular city council meeting from August 19th, 2018.
Thank you. Could I have a second? Councilmember Barentine, I think that was a second. Yep. All right. Please vote.
All votes been cast. Let the record show 7 ayes.
Thank you. The agenda item 6A is a proclamation declaring September 2019 as Workforce Development Month in Englewood. Could I have a motion to approve the proclamation? I will read it. Proclamation September 2019 as Workforce Development Month in Englewood, Colorado, whereas we at the City of Englewood recognize that a skilled, well-trained labor force is vital to the continued growth and competitiveness of Englewood businesses, and whereas the Englewood Forward Comprehensive Plan and Economic Development Initiatives strive to support the growth and retention of primary employers in the community by cultivating the development of a talented, available, and an inclusionary workforce that supports these employers, whereas Englewood has forged strong and productive partnerships to support this endeavor, including with Arapahoe Douglas Works, which hosts a variety of special events designed to help Colorado businesses and workers succeed by strategically investing in human capital that contributes to regional economic vitality. And whereas on September 10th, 2019, the City of Englewood will collaborate with the Metro Denver Area Workforce Centers to host a job fair for government agencies that promote livable wages for all Colorado residents. The job fair will be held at the Englewood Civic Center from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. Now, therefore, I, Linda Olson, Mayor of Englewood, Colorado, do hereby proclaim September 2019 Workforce Development Month in Englewood, Colorado. Could I have a motion to approve this proclamation?
I move to approve the proclamation proclaiming September 2019 as Workforce Development Month in Englewood.
Thank you. Could I have a second?
I second.
Please vote.
All votes been cast. Let the record show 7 ayes.
Thank you. Here to present, I believe, are 3 people: Ms. Jamie Fisher from the Arapahoe Douglas Works, Ms. Rhonda Tucker Dickerson, Englewood Human Resources Department, and Mr. Daring Hollingsworth, who is our Englewood Community Development Department. And I would like to present these to you, but if you have a few words, we'll take a minute for that.
I do, thank you. The Colorado Workforce Centers have been celebrating September as Workforce Development Month since 2004. This year we have 70 events scheduled statewide, including job fairs, open houses, workshops, and employer seminars. The first week of September, we will be focusing on apprenticeships throughout the state. Second week will be devoted to the education sector. The third week to healthcare, and the fourth week will target energy. More information can be found at coworkforce.gov.
Thank you. Thank you very much for doing this, and I'm going to bring up this proclamation here.
I would hope so.
Mm-hmm.
The second item of 6 is 6B. A representative from Arapahoe County is here to receive or to actually present us with a check for the Romans Park Playground upgrades. Commissioner Kathleen Conti is here, as well as our former Englewood Mayor, Bev. Oh, she's not here though, is she? That's who. And then Communications Manager Chris Henning from the county, right? And then do you have another person with you? No, okay. Would you like to say a few words?
Since when would an elected official not want to say a few words?
Thank you, Commissioner Conti.
Thank you. Mayor Olson, it is a pleasure to be with you tonight, council members and Mayor. Here in Arapahoe County, we are very fortunate to have strong citizen support for our parks and trails and open space. In 2003 and 2011, the voters approved a 1/4-cent sales tax that has been used to extensive investment in outdoor recreation in the communities across Arapahoe County. 12% of those revenues are dedicated to grant programs, such as what we are presenting tonight to you. Each year, we invite the municipalities and special districts to submit projects for consideration for funding. And since the tax began, we've invested nearly $36 million in grant funding across the county for more than 200 projects. This year, we've awarded $4.4 million for grants in 12 projects, including this one, Romans Park Tennis and Playground Improvements. We're excited to support this project with you, which will replace old, unusable tennis courts, provide new playground equipment, and recognize the play areas to make it easier for guardians to keep an eye on multiple kids. We value our partnership with the City of Englewood, and we look forward to a continued working relationship with you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Would you like council to come forward to receive this and have a photo with you? Or?
Absolutely.
This is a big honkin' check.
Yes.
Thank you. Hold it up. Yes, just one more comment on this is our Parks and Recreation Department absolutely depends on this kind of partnership with the county and the open space and all kinds of funding that come through these various forms. We just don't have it. So I don't know if, would you like, a deputy city manager like to?
I just wanted to say thank you. You have made so many projects a realization in Englewood, and it wouldn't happen without the citizens of Arapahoe County and your leadership. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Next is item 6C, which is a recognition of code enforcement award. I'd like to read for you this award. The Englewood Code Enforcement Animal Welfare Division 2019 Colorado State Animal Control Agency of the Year Award. The Colorado Association of Animal Control Officers has named the Englewood Code Enforcement and Animal Welfare Division their 2019 Colorado State Animal Control Agency of the Year in recognition of their ongoing commitment to the welfare of the community of Englewood. Their dedication and support of the community goes above and beyond with the improved training, excellence in officer response for service, enhanced community outreach, and overall positive promotion of the industry. In 2018, they responded with swift, compassionate action to over 1,000 calls for animal-related service. The department is setting an excellent example for animal control agencies across our state, not only in ensuring the welfare of animals and wildlife, but also in protecting and educating the public. The members of the Colorado House of Representatives are proud to recognize and sincerely congratulate the Englewood Code Enforcement and Animal Welfare Division for earning this prestigious award. Thank them for their contribution to the citizens of Englewood in need, both two- and four-legged, and wish them continued success. So on request of the Representative Meg Froelich, given on the first day of May 2019, State Capitol of Denver, this is when this was read and presented, and we're doing this again tonight. So I think we'll have our folks from our departments come forward to receive and to present to us. Or we want to thank you, first of all. So Supervisor Dave Lewis, I'm not sure if you're the one doing a bit to present your staff and introduce, or if Chief Collins wants to do something, but it's your time.
So just to present the staff to you and council, I know that you've met them previously, and to the rest of the community, I wanted to introduce Officer Fosrock, Officer Futro, Officer Ball, and Officer Pharisee, who really are dedicated to the community here in the city of Englewood. They work in a very empathetic environment. They are extremely professional. They work to the highest levels of ethics, and they really do support not just the citizens of Englewood, but also our friendly furry companions here in the city. So I really want to thank them for their hard work and their ongoing dedication as a team to the city and to its citizens. So thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Supervisor
We can do a
Lewis,
photo
could
for
you do me
sure.
a favor? Would you be able to identify each one of the code officers to their district as well so that people in the audience know who's serving them?
We're in the process of redistricting,
Oh,
so I'll
okay.
hold
Oh,
off on
okay.
that.
I'm
Thank
sorry.
you.
How about if we have you come on up and we'll, again, I don't know how you want to do a photo. I know you want to take one. Would you like all of council there behind and join in? Okay. Okay, let's do that.
Certain people like their code people.
Should have stayed up there. Thank you very much. Appreciate the work that you all have been doing on our behalf and for the things that you're doing in the future with the changes and some of the things you're talking about tonight in our study session. Next is agenda item 7, which is recognition of scheduled public comment. The deadline to sign up to speak for scheduled public comment is Wednesday by 5 p.m. prior to the meeting through the city clerk's office. Only those who meet the deadline can speak in this section. This is an opportunity for the public to address council. There is an expectation that the presentation will be conducted in a respectful manner. Council may ask questions for clarification, but there will not be any dialogue. Please limit your presentation in this section to 5 minutes. Written material for presentation to council may be submitted to the city clerk as a speaker approaches the podium, and a USB port is available for public presentation. Our first person up tonight is Ms. Becky Deal, an Englewood resident here simply to address council, no topic given.
Mayor, could you please identify who'll be doing the update?
It is you.
Oh, okay, I just wanted to make sure. Thanks.
Thanks for asking.
Becky Deal, 1241 West Radcliffe Avenue. Well, I was going to start with my speech, but I might run out of time. I wanted to share this with you because it broke my heart. My grandson went to the library at school today for the first time this year, and out of the thousands of books in the library, this is the book he chose to pick out and bring home. In time of need, floods. And of course, you know that's exactly what I'm here to talk about. Yeah. Did you know that water, even flood water, is an amazing thing? The force behind it can snap 4x4s clean off and lift others. 4x4s that are cemented 2 feet in the ground, just lay them over. Did you know when your car gets water up over the seats and into the dash, it'll no longer run? But your lawnmower that totally gets submerged will come back to life if you know what to do. Did you know you can't clean everything on your appliances when they get wet, no matter how hard you try? Or that your vacuum rusts, the moving parts no longer move? Did you know the heater ducts in the floor fill up with water, and water will start seeping in through electrical outlets on the outside of your walls? Both are never a good thing. Did you know your carpet gets ruined and must come up and be thrown out because you can never get it clean enough? The same goes for a mattress when it gets soaked too. Did you know you must take off all the baseboards in your house? Use industrial drying fans and dehumidifiers to dry out the walls. And no matter how many times you mop, those fans kick up the dust and it settles on everything. Did you know that having to run those fans day in, day out for weeks on end will drive you crazy and triple your electric bill? Did you know when you go to put back those baseboards, you have to recaulk and paint, but things must be completely dry first? Did you know the wooden drawers warp when they get wet and dry out and never slide freely again? It only takes a few gallons of a few gallons of laundry soap to launder the things that got wet. Did you know that your shoes on the floor of your closet are never really the same after floating around in flood water, especially your leather boots? Did you know that pictures, books, anything paper, after getting wet and starts to dry out, never really come apart? It's like they're glued together. Did you know when the water recedes, it leaves behind a silt that must be scraped up and off of everything it touched? Not to mention the weed seeds that are left deposited in your lawn. Did you know trash cans float, even when full, and float with the current, leaving the trash in those cans on the ground? But the owners of those cans will come to collect those cans, but not collect their trash that was in them. Did you know if you leave that trash and debris on your lawn too long, it'll kill your grass and your garden too? And you can't fill the lawn trash bags too full because the debris is very heavy. Did you know that your trash company has a limit on how many bags of trash they will pick up every week? So you have to call and give them your sob story so that they will pick up all those bags that you've got out front. Did you know there are some things your trash company will not pick up? So you must have many roll-off dumpsters to fill to get rid of all your ruined personal belongings. Did you know when horrible or great things that happen to you, you never forget about them no matter how old or young you are when they happen to you? Did you know I used to love to watch the rain, the smell after, but not anymore? All of these things I live with and more, and I can and do live with them. And it does get a little easier with each passing day. Did you know the one thing that breaks my heart beyond repair is knowing my grandson no longer likes it when it rains too. And what he saw, witnessed, and lived through will lessen as time goes for him too. But I'm told he will never forget and will always remember the tragedy of when our home was flooded. That's the book he checked out. It has been over a year. He still remembers.
Thank you for presenting tonight. Next up is Ms. Julie Bowden, an Englewood resident, here to address council regarding the proposed Code Enforcement Advisory Committee enabling legislation.
It's a good sound. Hi, Julie Bowden, District 1 and Chair of the Code Enforcement Advisory Committee. Good evening, Mayor Olson and City Council members. I'm here to talk about the proposed changes to the Code Enforcement Advisory Committee enabling legislation and request your consideration for two key areas. One, the limitation of the committee's scope to Title 15. And two, the ability to work directly with code enforcement. For the benefit of the audience, I'll provide a background on why I'm here today. Earlier this year, staff recommended that City Council review the enabling legislation for the Code Enforcement Advisory Committee. Enabling legislation specifies the purpose, function, and powers of the committee. Changes to the committee enabling legislation have been proposed, and these changes will go before City Council to vote on. So that's why I'm here, is I want to provide you some input before you take that next step. The first concern that I have is limiting the scope of the committee to Title 15. It's the responsibility of the committee to review codes and processes intended to prevent or abate situations that are detrimental to the health, safety, and welfare of the community. Limiting the scope of the committee to Title 15 really doesn't make sense for several reasons. As an advisory committee to code enforcement, we should be in line with their scope of duties. The name alone implies that we are aligned with code enforcement. Code enforcement currently enforces Titles 5, 6, 8, 9, 11, 12, 15, 16, and portions of Title 7. I've included excuse me, a graph of what this looks like right now, and you can see that code enforcement has a list over here, and the Code Enforcement Advisory Committee is just addressing one title. The concern that I have with that is that the community views us as a forum to address Englewood code issues, even though many areas of the code are covered by other departments. Over the past 3 years, I've witnessed citizens come to the public forum to discuss code issues that are not in Title 15. Some we refer to the city departments that are responsible for them, and we address the remainder. Turning citizens away because their concerns are outside of Title 15 will only create further frustration. The purpose of the committee states we are to review codes and regulatory processes and provide recommendations for updates. Ordinance and regulatory processes are covered in titles beyond just Title 15, and the committee currently addresses these areas. For example, animals and fowl are covered in Title 7, Public Safety, and trees and ice and snow removal are in Title 11, Public Ways and Property. And looking at the ordinances that we've reviewed over the past 3 years, many of them are outside of Title 15. Some of them have actually come to us at the request of City Council, such as dangerous animals and trees and shrubs. In addition, many of the codes appear in multiple titles. For example, noise control ordinances appear in Title 5, 6, 7, 11, 15, and 16. The committee looks at all of these occurrences of code topics throughout the titles in order to have consistent language and codes. I believe the restriction to Title 15 dates back to the committee inception and in the 90s and warrants it needs to be updated to reflect our current practices. Secondly, the second concern I have is the ability to collaborate with code enforcement. The committee works closely with code enforcement on several issues, such as reviewing and proposing changes to code enforcement processes, procedures, and administrative functions, and coordinating code communications that coincide with code enforcement focus. The proposed legislation includes an additional rule that prohibits the committee members from interacting with code enforcement. The additional rule states that the members of the committee shall interact with code enforcement personnel solely and directly through the committee manager. This additional rule removes our ability to accomplish duties and powers as listed above. For example, we rely on code enforcement input to propose changes to ordinances, and we also work closely with them, as you heard earlier today, to create communications regarding code that are sent out to the community. So in summary, I'm requesting Council reconsider wording in the enabling legislation that restricts scope to Title 15 and remove the added rule that restricts our ability to collaborate with code enforcement. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Ms. Bowden? Member Berentine?
Do you have a copy available to us?
Of this presentation, I will send it to the city clerk, yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, and I wanted to ask you what you sent us earlier too in the email with the attachment. This really summarizes what you're saying tonight as well, right?
Right.
So.
It's a more entertaining version of the document, yes.
This? You did a good job on both, I'd say. Any other questions? Thank you very much.
I just wanted to make sure by asking for it to be put in here, City Clerk, will that put it on the record so that I can get, if I get that copy? Okay, that's
yes.
what I wanted to make sure happens. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Next is Ms. Pamela Beets, an Englewood resident, here to speak about growth. Welcome.
Sorry, I can only see so far here. Thank you, City Council, for hearing me once again.
Give your name and what,
I'm sorry.
whether you live in the city or a district is fine too.
Pamela Beets, 3224 South Delaware Street. I think tonight, some of the things, the awards you've given about for parks and our city code officers, tell us about why we love to live in Englewood, this small town feel that I'm really concerned we're going to lose. And I wasn't able to stay for the full meeting for the Kmart, the Hive redevelopment, but I would like to talk about that some yet tonight. And Mayor Olson, I thought you brought up a couple really good points. One is that you asked, you know, how do we know that you're going to build what you say you're going to build? And your other question was, how do we revitalize Englewood? And if you can't answer those questions and we don't know what you're going to build with some kind of surety, we shouldn't be building it. There's no ordinance or state law, to my best of my knowledge, that asks for a developer to stick to their plan. And I believe the developer said something like, well, we've chosen the outside materials of the building. And to me, that's not quite good enough. And another question I had was the developer also showed how many businesses declined to come into that space. That makes me wonder, who doesn't want to do business with the city of Englewood or with the developer? Now, I understand we'd all like to have that Kmart property generate some income. I think as a residents and a council, that would really be helpful. However, I think that there's no business, a large number of businesses that didn't want to do business there. And to me, the way it was situated with the storage office in front, and it just didn't make sense of how they had it arranged to what they said that it was going to do. And I think for me, I think it's time for Englewood to determine what we want, not what a developer wants. And I would hope that, I'd like to challenge you to think outside the box. And I really mean that not as a metaphor, but have some creative vision of what do we want. And I think this nice check for parks and recreation says what a lot of us residents really want is more parks, more recreation, more open space. We like our small town feel. We don't want to see it ruined. And we can only rely on you for that. And, I'm really worried about high density, and I'm worried about this property. And actually, I saw some ideas that I thought were intriguing, which you might find ridiculous, but I thought they were interesting. They're not my ideas, but a number of new housing developments have been built around urban farms. The other thing you mentioned, Mayor Olson, was this idea of revitalization. What if you did something completely different and turned a parking lot into a park? What if people could go into that Kmart building to an ice cream shop and come out and sit in a park? What if people could bring their kids to a handicapped park area and still go in and shop for a restaurant? What if there was a microbrewery or microgreens are really big right now. I mean, there's lots of possibilities besides a parking lot and an apartment building. I'd like to see us think of something that would really revitalize Englewood. And the worst it could do is maybe provide a place for stormwater drainage. I won't pretend to understand the difficulties in some of that, but I think it's a possibility we could accomplish and have a whole different vision of what a retail center might actually be. And that whole four corner might be completely different if people had a place to enjoy it instead of just a place to park. And, I actually talked to some friends who live in Austin and Taos. They're seeing the same kind of problems, the scrape off, disregard of the community. It's the same apartment buildings, it's the same developers, it's the same look. And we love Englewood because it has a small town feel. And we want to keep that, and I'm asking you to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Council, I just want to, and I should have probably said this too, that we cannot consider your comments because the public hearing is closed, but you have the right to come and speak and say what you want.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Next is Ms. Marcy Brown, an Englewood resident, here to address council, no topic given.
It's Marcy Brown, District 1. I would like the amendment to Title 16 UDC bulk plane regulations reversed. Please take my request seriously and vote on this matter before elections take place for obvious reasons. I'd like to read a quote to you that I feel is pertinent to my talk this evening. Quote is, "The worst sin towards our fellow creatures is not to hate them, but to be indifferent to them. That's the essence of inhumanity." It's by George Bernard Shaw. I attended the Trash Talk Town Hall meeting the city held last week, and I cannot believe that you are holding 3 meetings talking about trash. Once again, the city is interfering with citizens' choices, picking our pockets, which makes me think that this is in some way is beneficial to the city. Hopefully you have not already decided the outcome, because you would be complicit in creating a monopoly. And here's what I don't understand, and perhaps someone can explain it to me. Why are we holding 3 town hall meetings talking about trash? Is that really one of the city's top priorities? I have never heard a speaker talk to council about how one trash hauler is going to dramatically make their lives better. However, I have heard others who take the time, attend council meetings on a regular basis, and stand before you asking for help on important matters. Not only do these speakers ask for help on their own behalf, but on behalf of their neighbors, neighborhoods, and their community. So how about having regular scheduled town hall meetings and publicizing them the way you have with these trash talk meetings? Because I can think of several subjects more important than trash. One topic could be about our antiquated drainage system and the devastating effects it has had on your citizens. This meeting would give a forum to allow people to tell their stories, listen to their input, and perhaps prevent another tragedy from happening again. A second topic might be about educating citizens how all this overdevelopment is creating stress on our infrastructure, how it has affected neighbors and has caused irreversible damage to our environment. Maybe you could also educate citizens on what an ADU, PUD, and STRs are and how they affect their neighborhoods. Because I had no idea myself what any of these acronyms were or what they stood for until someone explained to me. Let's educate people about what is going on in our city and let them make up their own minds if this is good for their community. A third topic could be about crime. It seems almost every day someone on Nextdoor is speaking about criminal activity happening in their neighborhoods. Since so many people have been impacted by the actions of others, I think you would have a great turnout for such a meeting. And by the way, someone has nicknamed our city Englewood. Great for our city's image. A fourth topic could be about the city's budget. Explain to your citizens where all the money is going, because it is either being mishandled or your spending exceeds what monies are being taken in by the city. Explain why their property taxes are going to be raised. Explain to them that once again they're going to have to tighten up their belts and suck it up. Explain to them how they will be able to afford necessities. Perhaps now is the city's turn to tighten up their belts by smarter spending, making smarter decisions, and possibly enforcing wage freezes for employees. Maybe it's time for the city to take one on the chin for the welfare of their citizens, and perhaps employing an impartial company to come in and audit your books once a year would be a good policy, because right now it's all about transparency. There are many more issues up for discussion, but any of the ones I have previously mentioned, I would be more than willing as a taxpayer to pay for pizzas and sodas on these topics instead of talking trash. So tell me as council members where your priorities lie. On the one hand, you have matters before you such as preventing loss of lives, property damage due to drainage issues, infrastructure, overbuilding crime, and the city's budget. On the other hand, you are having 3 meetings talking trash. I know which side I stand on. Which side does council lean towards? That decision is up to you, but please don't project indifference on these other matters that have come before you. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions for her? Seeing none, thank you for coming tonight. Next up is Ms. Cian Dickerson, an Englewood resident, here to speak to council. No topic given.
Cian Dickerson, District 1. This is a reminder to you of the public testimony that was in opposition to or the caveats stated on the Hive PUD. This is a specious PUD request. Per City Attorney Allison McKinney Brown during the hearing, a PUD is a rezoning. This is not. It is little more than a variance, adding uses to an existing zoning. And there are serious questions of traffic impact and the ability of pedestrian access to the site itself. Applicant testimony and planning analysis admits the inability to render Bellevue pedestrian on the north side of the building or bicycle access viable, much less safe. And who is going to pay for the crosswalks, bike lanes, and traffic signals that will be required to ineffectively make such access even remotely safe? The applicant, William Warren, is acting as the developer of the whole site, yet they are developers for StoreQuest and have little knowledge or qualifications for retail and have no part in the Choose development. In addition, their testimony and the testimony of planning staff shows little or no understanding of bike lanes and pedestrian access, even though a claim is made that they are in line with the comp plan and reasonable accommodation. It is only from parking lot to the Hive. A bike lane along Bellevue is problematic, and the citizens through the city should not have to pay for this. There are a number of topics of questions that I have and lack of transparency I see in this application. There's the issue of ownership versus county records. Comp plan references. Land use per county is merchandising all retail. Variance versus rezoning. Residential and 60-foot height built into this. A variance granted by Public Works for storm drainage. Given all the open questions about this vague and incomplete PUD site plan and the lack of pedestrian bike access along Bellevue, any vote on this PUD should be postponed or sent back to the beginning and a new public hearing held where the responsible party has answered and revealed all the plans, fixed the access problems, and has deposited a fee sufficient to cover any city costs of infrastructure like crosswalks, bike lanes, safety features, and the residential piece and 60-foot height need to be removed from the PUD. Should the currently recorded by the county assessor land use of commercial one-story merchandising, all retail, desires to be changed in the future to a residential use, even though this is not a viable residential site, then a new PUD should be sought with more than a minimal park in lieu of fee and impact fees assessed to account for the change in drainage and impact on infrastructure, including storm drainage, detention pond, park requirements, and additional roads and traffic lights. As is, this PUD request is not to the benefit of the citizens, nor should it be granted until or unless the residential piece and 60-foot height removed and a viable traffic plan is made for Bellevue pedestrians and bicycles and the cost paid by the applicant.
Thank you. I want to remind council that nothing that was said tonight regarding the public hearing we had last time can be considered in our decision-making tonight. Thank you.
It's a reminder of what was said in the public hearing.
Thank you. Next up is Mr. Doug Cohn, an Englewood resident, here to present on Englewood history.
Good evening. I have two things to talk about tonight. The first is History Colorado has contacted the Englewood Historic Preservation Society about having a history tour of Englewood on November 14th, 2020. And I think that's kind of cool. They do about 10 every year. We're honored to have them even consider us. We're working on a plan with them right now. Englewood is getting rediscovered by the rest of the state. The Arapahoe Acres 70th anniversary celebration was very successful. a lot of people have viewed the Englewood Moments in History videos that Chris Hargath has put together. I think we're getting folks' attention. A question concerning the history tour. The thought crossed my mind of using the motorized horse car as an attraction. It's a faithful replica of the original. The question, would you be open to having the motorized horse car just parked in the circle drive outside the library next to the real one, just so that people could peek inside and see what the old horse car looked like? So just a question for consideration. Main thing I wanted to talk about tonight, the story of Englewood's water supply. When Englewood was incorporated in 1903, most residents relied on shallow wells. Some got water from the city ditch. The fourth meeting of the 1903 City Council was with the Denver Union Water Company, discussing putting in a water main system in the city. The talks failed. In 1909, the city tried to buy the Brown irrigation ditch, but could not obtain the money to do it. So Englewood contracted with the Denver Union Water Company for water service. The residents had to lay their own water mains from wherever the Union water main was. And that turned out to be kind of problematic when each person has to put in their own water main. In 1917, the Englewood City Council asked voters to approve a bond issue for constructing an independent water system. It was defeated. After Union was acquired by the Denver Water Board in 1918, Englewood's Mayor Alfred Bell requested more water taps. He was given two options: either construct a parallel water line and pay a metered rate, or pay a much higher rate for new water taps. Talk of Englewood being annexed to Denver surfaced in the 1920s, spurred on by the Denver Water Board, who wanted to have the revenue from Englewood. The mayor and the city council were in favor of the annexation. The Chamber of Commerce opposed it. They held an election, and the pro-annexation forces won by 16 votes. The Arapahoe County District Court dismissed the election results after irregularities were found in the balloting and polling procedures. Another election was held. This time the proposal was defeated by 7 votes. Englewood's future was decided by 7 votes. Proposals to build an independent water system were put to a vote again and defeated 1921, 1923. In 1932, Englewood asked again about it, and money was approved to build a water system and also approve Colorado Central Power as the city supplier of electricity. Colorado Central Power didn't like the way the vote went, so they took it to court, and the whole thing was tied up until 1938. During this whole time, the city continued to obtain water from the Denver Water Board. In 1948, the Denver Water Board issued new conditions for selling water to Englewood. They annulled the 1909 agreement. Water rates were to increase 50%. Water mains and meters had to be installed at the customer's expense. Water rates would be renegotiated annually. I'm going to skip a little bit here. Enter Charles Allen, elected mayor in 1948. He was well aware of Englewood's water problems, as he had to drill 2 wells to supply water to his own ice cream shop on Broadway that he'd opened in 1944. In October 1948, Englewood voters authorized the sale of $2 million in bonds to purchase the water rights and build a water treatment plant. The city purchased the Atchison Ranch at the mouth of the Waterton Canyon for its water rights. They sold the ground to a brand new company just coming into town called Martin Marietta. The only way the water could get to from that place, I'm going to run out of time. I guess I'll have to do part 2 next time. Sorry.
We look forward to it. Thank you. No questions for you tonight. Thank you for coming. That ends our scheduled public comment. Next is agenda item 8, which is recognition of unscheduled public comment. The same words that I mentioned earlier are true. You can present up here with a USB if you need it, and you'll each be limited to 3 minutes. And first signed up tonight is Tiffany, I think Leon, perhaps? about alley paving. Yeah. And you're Shannon York? Okay, you're going to do it together? Okay.
Sorry, we're a little unprepared. Thank you for...
That's okay. Can you each state your name? And you don't have to tell us exactly where you live, but you can tell us that you live in the city or what district?
Tiffany Leon, Shanna York, 4700 block South Sherman.
Great.
And we just were wanting to discuss the alleyways and how...
We have the timer. Yeah, great. Thanks.
How we get off the...
Action not required at this time.
Right.
Based on the map, the alley map that was published, looks like back in April of this year. It shows that there's a number of them that are scheduled, which is actually showing a block ahead of, it's all around us. And we're showing as black, where action is not required at this time. And we would both like to try to get our alley, our alley and our block on the schedule, because the alley is just horrendous.
Right.
There's huge potholes. I just moved here from Minnesota last year, and
I moved from Texas, and my husband, we've been in this house for 5 years. We were told it was going to be paved,
We were
and
told
now
the
my
same thing.
husband, who is actually a city and county worker for Denver, said, we're moving because of the alley.
I bottomed out my car really bad when we first moved here because of one of the really bad potholes that are right before you get onto, is it Tufts?
Mm-hmm.
I'm still learning my streets, I'm sorry.
Yeah, it is Tufts.
On Tufts, and because I had just a sedan, and I ended up loosening my muffler where my partner, my boyfriend, had to fix it. Since then, I mean, I don't have to drive through my alley, but if I want to,
yeah, I do.
You know, it's an inconvenience for when I have to, and so we were just wanting to try to get on the agenda to see what we could do to get our block put on the schedule.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Barentine's going to be responding to the requests tonight at the end of this section, so thank you. Appreciate your being here. Next up is Ms. Judy Dunlop, here to speak about transparency.
Judy Dunlop, District 1. Transparency. What is transparency in government? To me, it is being accountable and telling the truth, not being bound by special interests, groups, or bias. Recently, I heard that a candidate running for city council alluded to transparency being irrelevant. It's nice, but it doesn't really matter. So when you hear the words of a candidate running, listen to their words. Words are cheap, but actions speak volumes. Ask them what their meaning of transparency is. We've been hearing a lot lately, staff says this or staff does that. Who is staff anyway? Words can matter and transparency is important. Staff has always meant a group of people that are hired and can be fired. They work for the boss or the CEO. We are asking ourselves lately, who is running the city? No more rubber stamping or done deals. We want our city council to be transparent and represent us, the citizens of Englewood. We are holding you accountable. Democracy starts at the lowest level of participation on a concern or an issue or an action that needs to be taken. We want our elected officials to assume their roles fully and be engaged in the betterment of our community. When there appears boredom or lack of interest by council members, that is not a demonstration of good governance. Don't make us regret that we entrusted you with our voices. Show leadership. Grassroots starts from the bottom up, and so with the municipal government on up to the political levels, but so does with grassroots organization. We the people want you to be accountable and expect you to tell the truth and work on our behalf. That is your job. I don't anticipate any questions from you tonight. My hope is that you will listen to the words and exhibit trust, honesty, and integrity. And lastly, transparency from developers. You will be reviewing supposed PUD, the planned unit development on the old Kmart property. During the public hearing a few weeks ago, there were more questions than answers. No one wants to prohibit responsible development, but lack of transparency is just another fly on the City of Englewood flypaper, masked as housing under the guise of a PUD. You can say nothing will be entered in testimony, but it did change a vote in the recent past. Vote no. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no questions, thank you for coming tonight. Next is Ms. Tammy Williams, I believe, and about here to speak about STR.
Hi, Tammy Williamson, 4198 South Washington. I saw last week's study session, and Wade Burkholder's "oops, I messed up" face. I expect the memes shortly. So really, I have a question about that when he said that Allison McKinney Brown told him that he could choose to not enforce the laws. Which one of you are lying? Was it you, or was it him, or actually?
Could you keep it focused on the issue that you want council to address?
This is the issue.
Thank you.
It's a trick question. I've seen planning and zoning lie so many times, it's just nuts. Why does the prosecutor, why is a prosecuting attorney, when they finally get forced to prosecute illegal STRs, why is he telling the defendants and the victims that he doesn't want to prosecute these people, that it's not worth his time? Why is it not worth his time to enforce what is currently on the books? And also about this third-party screening system that was brought up, it's pretty ridiculous. No one in their right mind is going to call a third party about noise or trash and fights in the street or whatever. That's just a way for the city to keep everything off the books and just sweep all the problems with short-term rentals under the rug. It won't work. It's a waste of money. You know, if they're too lazy to do their job and they want to hire someone, you know, someone brought up $75,000, you know, I'll do it for 50. I'll do it for 25. You know, I found 3 short-term rentals in my neighborhood, and it only took like 20 minutes each time. That little pin that they talk about, it's only like a 6-block radius. All you have to do is drive up and down the block and match up the pictures. It is so easy. And you know, if they know of 129 or whatever that already exist, why are they still existing? Why are they still operating when it's illegal right now at this time? It should not be. It's, the public is just being ignored, and it's a shame. It really is. That's it.
Thank you. Thank you very much for coming. Next is, the last one is Ms. Janice Brown, here to speak about thanks, or to give thanks, I'm not sure.
Hello, Janice Brown, District 3. August 21st, 2019. Today, the Environmental Protection Agency announced the winners of a Technology Accelerating Quality Challenge. This year's winners demonstrate how data from low-cost water quality monitoring sensors can be used to inform local nutrient management decisions. South Platte Water Renewal Partners has shown great innovation in the development of nutrient sensors. This facility is using sensor data to optimize wastewater treatment to meet more stringent nitrogen standards and improve the watershed health. The prize is $50,000. Great things are happening in Englewood. First Code Enforcement Animal Welfare Division won Agency of the Year. Then Dave Lee and the Parks and Rec Department received a $500,000 grant for the upgrade of Romans Park, the latest being the award from the EPA to South Platte Water Renewal Partners. Congratulations, Englewood. We are very grateful to the Englewood staff for all their hard work. Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming. Seeing no questions, appreciate your coming tonight. That concludes our unscheduled public comment. Next up is consent agenda items. Tonight we have two, B1 and B2. And Council, I'm going to ask.
Mayor.
Sorry. Oh, sorry, Member Barentine's remarks. Sorry. We have a time where one of our council members every time responds to the conversations that we've heard tonight and any council requests from it. So thank you, Member Barentine, for reminding me of that.
Yes, thank you everybody for coming tonight. I greatly appreciate it. It's always, that's what helps keep us informed, and we need to keep that conversation going. Ms. Deal, I am grateful that you have the tenacity to continue to come to remind us each time. I don't know that any words really end up being good enough, but I'm going to give it an effort because I owe you that. I am sorry that your grandson continues to have this. It would break my heart for that. It would break my heart. You remind us time and time again that these situations are devastating and go on long after the event. It is my understanding that the city manager is trying to put together a flood meeting. I believe that we need to give him an opportunity to do that. I know that it's long overdue, but you keep coming because you want to see something different, and we keep trying because we want to try and make it different too. So we're still trying to work together, and I greatly appreciate you coming. To Julie Bowden, the now chair of the Code Enforcement Advisory Committee, I greatly appreciate the work that you did in the presentation to give us a little bit more in-depth understanding of limiting the scope to Title 15, and that it should be in line with the code enforcement duties, and to the collaboration, which we also heard in the study session. That Dave Lewis, the supervisor of code enforcement, was very happy with the collaboration and the effort that's gone on, especially for ice and snow, which we will be talking about later today. And that issue has been going on a long time, both as you as chair and the previous chair as well, and I'm glad to hear that a lot of really good work got done, and we will hopefully be discussing and passing some stuff that you guys worked very hard on over the last couple of years. So I appreciate that, and he echoed that as well, that we need to keep that kind of collaboration going, and those kind of wholesale changes maybe need to be further discussed. We will see. Pamela Beats, I will not discuss anything with the PUD, but PUDs in general may be a reflection of some problems with zoning, and maybe we need to take a look at some of that. And growth in general, I understand your concern with that, and potential impact fees in the future. We've been talking about it for the last 4 years. The last city manager came and went, and nothing ever happened with it. So maybe we need to have a little bit better discussion about it, so another 4 years doesn't go by and it just still isn't done. To Marcy Brown, Title 16, the bulk plane reversal, there were some very serious wholesale changes made in 2014 and early 2015, and this might be a good time for us to revisit them and whether those fit this community well or not. Having been in place and having been a huge problem, a lot of issues brought up, that it may be something we need to have a conversation again about. The trash and talk meetings, I'm not going to bemoan that there are 3 meetings going on, and I think that's a good thing. However, you were well spoken on that we need to have that kind of interaction and communication going on a variety of issues, and it should become commonplace and the norm for us to have that kind of interaction in communication with the community on a variety of issues. You brought up a good list to start. And again, I think that to the flood, I think the new city manager is listening. And I think that he's willing to provide that leadership. And I think that he's had some conversations about, like I told Ms. Deal, on the flood. But we have to be able to start somewhere. But I appreciate the list that you brought up and hope that you provide that to council as well, so that we can both put that into the record and provide that to the city manager as well. Cian, most of yours was about the PUD rezoning. I'm not going to go ahead and comment specifically on that. I do believe that the comments that you made were a reiteration of what was discussed at the meeting, and so I will leave it at what you said. Doug Cohn, the history tour no doubt is coming because they are rediscovering us because you give constant history lessons to us. And I also want to give a shout out to our new communications, Chris Hargrove. If I'm saying his name incorrectly, I do apologize. Could you correct me? Harguth, okay. I'm wrapping my head around that. He's been doing an amazing job. He's been with us for a very short term, and you guys have just done such an amazing collaborative effort, and I really like seeing that and have enjoyed that. But I think it's also bringing some of that attention as well, and thank you very much for the work that you've done, because no doubt that's part of it. Shannon and Tiffany, part of what I understand for these alley maps with this action at no time is also that they're going by complaint. And so thank you for coming to complain. So I would like to go ahead and do a council request that the alley condition be reviewed so that we can see whether that needs to be moved up. As many have, it is somewhat of a concern to people occasionally when they see just one alley done, and trying to explain that occasionally they go outside of the graph, but the schedule, but that's what I was told, and so if we could do that as a council request, that'd be great. Also, just to backtrack for a second, I would like another council request on the horse cart that Doug Cohen had brought up as well, on what that would take to do what he's asking. So he was trying to get through it quick because he was asking and didn't want too many favors there. So those two council requests so far. To Judy Dunlap, transparency is important, and you're correct, and that's exactly how the community and the citizens know exactly what their elected officials are doing, how they're making their decisions, what information they're using, and what's going on with that. I think you were well-spoken, and I don't think there's anybody on this council that doesn't take that to heart, but I appreciate what you said, and it was well done, and it's food for thought for all of us. Tam Williamson, the short-term rentals. Wade Burkholder is an employee, and what I asked Wade Burkholder was who gave him the authority. He is not responsible for the authority that was given him. We are responsible to the two employees that give the authority, and that is our administration. We hire and fire city managers. We hire and fire city attorneys. Employees do not make those decisions. They are guided, and they do what they're told in those situations. We as a council have to hold the administration accountable for those situations and back up our employees as best we can and hold ourselves accountable when those decisions are made and that they are not in the best interest of this community, and then hold the people that are our employees accountable for that. Janice Brown, thank you so much for reminding us about the EPA. The others have been already gone over, but you did a beautiful job of going over the wastewater treatment plant and their win, and congratulations to them. And $50,000, you're correct, is nothing to sneeze at. So good job for them, and I hope that we have something a little bit more formal to find out what gets done with the money and and exactly what that award was about in the future. And I believe that that was all that I have. Thank you very much, Mayor.
Thank you, Member Bernstein. Now, next up is consent agenda items, and 9B1 and 9B2. I would like to pull 9B1, CB 34, for personal reasons that I'll share when we get to that. But so could I get a motion to approve 9B2?
I move to approve 9B2.
Can I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Please vote.
All votes been cast. Let the record show 7 ayes.
Thank you. Back to 9B1, CB 34, the approval of the Tri-Cities IGA for homelessness assessment. Someone mentioned to me that, and I'm not sure if this is true or not, so I just want to make sure, I want it to be public and have reintroduce this. Normally we don't put anything onto, we put things on consent agenda if there were fully supported, unanimous by council, and this one was, that's why it went on there. But I am an employee of the University of Denver, which houses the Burn Center, and that's been talked about before during study session. Someone in the community told me that a council member suggested that it was unethical for me to be voting on this. So tonight I would like to have a vote on whether or not I should recuse myself. There's been confusion from the public on what recusing myself might mean for this and under what conditions. It's really overseen by state statute, and from my understanding, in the city attorney could elaborate on this if it seems important, if I make a mistake here, but the state statute, from my understanding, allows me to recuse myself or if I myself or my spouse has financial interest or could experience financial gain in a decision that I make. I go by a little higher standard of that. I think if there's any time where someone might have a sense that something's not right, I would prefer to recuse myself, but since I do work for the University of Denver, overall, the health of my department that I work for has no impact on whether we make this decision tonight, but indirectly, the welfare of the university, I think, could be seen as something that is impacted by this decision because another department is able to do the research that they're set aside to do. So I'd like to ask council to please entertain a vote tonight as to whether you would like me to recuse myself on this decision and remove any uncertainty in the public's eyes or any one of your particular eyes. Councilmember Berentine.
Didn't we already vote on that?
No, we didn't. We just had a conversation, and you asked me whether I thought I should recuse myself. I said, according to the state statute, it doesn't appear I won't have any direct financial benefit from it. But since someone has mentioned it, I do want to make it a vote. Councilmember Martinez.
Thank you. I would prefer that you are able to vote on this. I don't have any trouble. I don't think there's any conflicts with your role and the Burn Center. So if we do vote on this, a yes vote would mean that we do want you to recuse yourself.
Right. So I'd like to, what I would like to propose is, but I'll take Member Cuesta next, and then I'll.
You bet. It's secondary, but I'm going to take this opportunity now. And this is one of the few things in council where I think I can dictate your actions or another council member's actions. I think it's the only one that comes to mind, truly. And I've never quite understood that. I will never understand your relationship fully with DU, nor anybody else's up here. And so I really think it's between yourself and your constituents, whether or not you vote. I would leave it to any council member up here to make that decision and let their conscience be their guide, and then, you know, sort it out with your constituents. So I've never been quite comfortable with this process that I decide whether or not you vote on a relationship that I'm at best outside looking in. And again, that might be a larger process question we need to have on this, but I've always thought it's a strange thing that I have control over whether or not you vote. Thank you.
I agree. And when there have been one other occasion where I asked to recuse myself, which was when we were voting on whether people could have home offices, and my husband is directly employed by education online, and we do very specifically would have an impact if we voted no against home offices, because then my husband would have to move out of our house and do online education somewhere else. And the council would not let me do that based on the state statute, so I understand that that's what it was, but I do like to hold myself to a different, higher standard. Mayor Pro Tem, I'll take it next.
I too agree that we are really good judges of ourselves, and I think that council shouldn't have to decide this. I think it's something that we do internally, and I do not have an issue with you voting. I mean, obviously, this is not going to change the outcome of this vote. I mean, people say things, and I don't know where they get them from. I mean, at the trash talk meeting, people were saying they heard that the council members got their trash picked up free.
I wish. No, I don't.
So all I'm saying is, I think it is, each of us should be able to determine on our own.
Well, that's the point. I'm suggesting I recuse myself, but you have to allow me to. So it's not a decision of just me, it's 7 of us. I believe that's correct. Is that not right, City Attorney?
When you changed to the Bob's rules, you changed to a situation where the member who desires abstaining is excused by the chairperson. The problem you have is when the chairperson chooses to abstain, the chairperson can't excuse themselves. So in this particular case, the chairperson is asking for a motion and a second for the council to approve an abstention.
Thank you.
All I've got.
So I'd like to move to approve that I recuse myself. Could I have a second so we can have a conversation further?
Second.
All right, great. Continue. Member Berentine?
It puts us in an awkward position because if you make a decision to ask to be recused, then I am deferring to your better judgment that you prefer to be recused, and I will respect that. But then on the other hand, through some kind of gossip and conversation, it seems as if you've put this in a situation where it looks like it's a vote of support to go, no, we know that you're honest and upright, and I believe that you are, but you're asking to be recused, and so I'm going to have to defer to your better judgment and allow you to be recused, and I don't want it to look as if there's some other reason for that. I cannot vote that you're not a conflict of interest when you're saying you would prefer not to vote, so I will go ahead and vote for you to abstain.
All right. Councilmember Martinez?
And you prefer not to vote on this, right?
I would prefer not, given the kinds of things that have been said in the varieties of, but that's my higher standard. You'll have to judge whether the state statute allows me to or not. Councilmember Wink.
Thank you, Mayor. If I were in the position that you're in, and I was told that council members were saying that, you know, the types of things you heard, I would do the same thing. And so I understand your predicament. I would like you to vote on this. I understand that there's no gain for you. You're not acting on behalf. You don't work. You're not affiliated with the Burn Center. Your role at the university is quite separate. And I would prefer that you weigh in on the vote.
So I guess I need to ask Mayor Pro Tem if she will. We have to vote on whether I recuse myself or not.
Oh, you're asking me if I'll call for the vote?
Yeah, so would you do it since I'm, this is an odd one, I know.
Okay. I will call for the vote, but I just want to say, I don't believe that other council members have said anything, and I believe that you are a woman of integrity, and I will vote the way that you want it voted, but I don't think it's necessary. So call for the vote.
Maybe can I make one comment? Okay,
please.
So I made a mistake, Member Barentine, the last meeting to not force this at that point. I should have just done that and made it over with. That's the mistake I made. And it would have been done and over with, and we would have done what we did with Member Cuesta when we were deciding whether we could vote on the mayor's salary, and that's what I should have done. I just should have gone with it. So I'm sorry to put you through this again because it's taking way too much time.
Can I get a clarification, though? At that time, you had the full support of this council that if you chose to vote, we were supporting you. So I'm not sure where the rest came, but I will honor your request.
Yes. Well, I'm just saying that I had an inkling at that point that I should not have been doing it that way. I should have just gone with the higher line. Anyway, go ahead.
Okay, I call for, please vote. A yes means Mayor Olson will recuse herself. A no vote means she will not be able to.
All votes have been cast. Let the record show 6 ayes and 1 nay, the 1 nay being Councilmember Wink.
Thank you, I appreciate that. And would you go ahead and take the other one?
Yes. So I would entertain a motion to approve Council Bill 34, the approval of the Tri-Cities IGA on homelessness.
I second.
I
Okay.
missed the first. I'm sorry.
That was the first, so who was the first?
Yes.
She was.
Oh. Okay, all right. I move that we do that, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Any more conversation? Please vote.
All votes have been cast. Let the record show 6 ayes and 1 abstention, the 1 abstention being Mayor Olson.
Thank you, appreciate your obliging me that time. Agenda item 10 is we have no public hearings tonight. Agenda 11, ordinance resolutions and motions. 11A1, could I have a motion to approve 11A1, the CB20?
I move to approve Council Bill 20, Code Enforcement Advisory Committee recommendation on code change for snow/ice removal.
Right. Oh, I forgot to do questions first.
Oh.
I'm sorry.
I'm
We need
happy
a
to answer
presentation
questions.
first, but hold on that.
Just wanted to give a quick summary of what this includes. It's based on the collaboration between Council, the City Attorney's Office, and the Code Enforcement Advisory Committee, recommending that the time for snow removal in the code be changed from 12 hours to 24 hours. That was discussed at a study session with council previously, and that it would remove penalties for snow and ice, the failure to do so, from the general nuisance clause to an offense handled through the Violations Bureau, with the exact fine being set when necessary by the municipal court. Those are the key factors of the ordinance, and I'd be happy to answer any questions to the best of my ability.
Any questions? Mayor Pro Tem Russell?
I have a question, and my question is, on the last page, the third recommendation, why was that not included in the ordinance? And I think it's the paragraph that says, the third change the Code Enforcement Advisory Committee would recommend to Englewood Municipal Code 1132 would be to stipulate in this code a habitual offender remedy. It is suggested that if an offender of this code receives 5 violations in a 12-month time period, that the offender's 6th violation and subsequent violations will go directly to summons. And I'm assuming that's a question for the city attorney. Do you know why that wasn't included in rewriting the ordinance?
Honestly, Mayor, I went over this so many months ago that I can't tell you exactly. I think we had a discussion in open meeting about the real issues with ice and snow, and as I'm remembering it, the Code Enforcement Advisory Committee, what they were really seeking was an extension from 12 to 24 hours for shoveling snow. And I brought up during that meeting that we have a difficulty in our code with our nuisance abatement regulations being made the abatement process for our zoning code, ice and snow, nuisance, a whole bunch of things. And there were many things for which it was not applicable. And I recall that I was given direction by a consensus of council to look for what other cities were doing to effectively enforce ice and snow. And that's what I did. I went out and looked at what some of the other municipalities within the Front Range area were doing that had been time tested and had been effective. So that's where the annual notice of violations, citations, and abatement came from, was following what other cities have done. As far as having 6 or 7 notices, I didn't consider that.
Okay, so I just have a couple of questions along that line. I think what they were trying to do is the person that continually you go through the process and they still don't do anything, and after a certain number of times, they put a number in here, that it would just automatically go to a violation. Is that something we could do? I mean, I'm not asking that we do it right now. I mean, if it becomes a problem and you have a lot of people doing that, is it something that we could consider later also?
I'm always willing to look at options. Exactly how we would do what you've just suggested off the top of my head, I don't know, but that doesn't mean we can't. What you know is we always go back and dig and keep looking for answers. So if council wants us to look in a different direction, we're always open to do that.
Okay, thank you. I mean, just when I was reading through this, I remembered that they went through that 3-step process, the committee did, for a reason. I think they just wanted to mitigate somebody that continually violates the code. Thank you.
If I may, the ordinance as written says that if only one violation will be noticed, and violations after that in each season would go directly to summons. So it's actually a little tighter than what was proposed by the Code Enforcement Advisory Committee.
Okay, thank you.
Understanding.
Seeing no further questions, could I have a motion to approve?
I move to approve 11A1.
Okay.
Well, we had, Councilmember Wink had already moved.
So it had already moved. Okay, so now I need the second for CB20.
All right, second.
Great, now we have it. Any further discussion? Member Cuesta.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm not going to be supporting tonight, and this is something that came up during study session, and I understand the arguments for it. My trepidation in supporting it is that it gives 24 hours from that last snowflake hitting the sidewalk. And if that happens at 9 a.m., that gives you all the way until on Tuesday. That gives you till 9 a.m. Wednesday. In cold temperatures, that snow is just going to get walked on and walked on. I live near Bellevue Park, and even in cold weather, we have a lot of folks that are walking their dog there, still pushing strollers down there. And so for me, I think that this creates more public safety issues than it resolves. So for that reason, I won't be supporting. I certainly appreciate the push to lower how we treat it in terms of an offense, but I won't be supporting tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments or discussion? I will join Member Cuesta in this. I have heard from a number of people, mostly people that are my age and aging as fast as I am, who are really concerned that they won't be able to walk again, walk their dogs or get out, which they depend on for their own health, and they want things to be cleared. What I'd really like to see us do is not necessarily change this time frame to make it more onerous, but or allow more, is to actually create some neighborhood groups that help people who particularly have a hard time getting that done. I mean, young families, sometimes a parent's out of town and the other is trying to get kids off to school and all that kind of thing, and then elderly people too. So I'd prefer to do that. But I've heard on this one when I don't usually hear anything on something like this, so, and it's summer. Councilmember Barentine, I think. Next.
I think that moving it to the 24 hours at least provides something that's enforceable and is a good step in trying to move it because it's not being enforced at all now. We have city property that they just put tape up and people can't walk on there. They've got to go into Hampton. And those are roads maybe that we're responsible for. So we need to kind of, we have several around the city currently right now in the summertime that are just blocked off where people can't walk and would have to go into Bellevue. I really think that this is at least a good step in trying to make something that really isn't enforceable or as enforceable now into something that could be enforceable and is reasonable. Part of the complaint was that we were trying to do something when people would be asleep and by the time they woke up that they'd already be in violation, or by the time that they went to work and came home they were already in violation. And I think by making it a little bit more reasonable that we're at least making it somewhat enforceable. The issue that brought this to our attention was a business on Hampton that the prior council, they were just told that if they tried to do it 3 times that they were off the hook after that. And that left a population on Hampton, very in public here in this room, conversations about this, and that's what we were told by the previous city manager, is that the previous council said if you did it 3 times, you didn't have to do it anymore because that was onerous to the business, but it made that sidewalk unwalkable for a large majority of the winter because they were on the north side. So I think this at least brings it to something that's enforceable, and I will be supporting it.
Councilmember Sierra?
I will be supporting this this code change, and I don't feel that it's really going to impact. I understand your concern, but I don't think this is going to impact the people that are currently shoveling their walks. I believe that this is a mechanism in order to enforce the people that currently aren't shoveling their walks. So the fact that we're putting in that time frame of 24 hours and putting in additional language that will make it more enforceable, I believe that this is that this code change is doing. So I understand your concern, especially with having a son that walks to school on occasion. So I don't expect this to affect the people that are currently shoveling their walks. Thanks.
Mayor Pro Tem Russell.
I agree. I do not believe it is going to increase the number of people not shoveling their walks. I believe the Code Enforcement Advisory Committee's reason for looking at this was definitely to make this law or this code more enforceable because in addition to the things that have already been mentioned, sometimes when citizens would call in to complain about areas being impassable, the response they got from code enforcement was it will melt. And so the bottom line is the process was code would go out and issue a notification. They had 7 days to shovel their walk. code enforcement comes back and it hasn't been done, they issue another citation and they have 21 more days. In that amount of time, it will melt. I believe that Code Enforcement Advisory Committee brought this forward to make this enforceable and to, like Councilmember Sierra said, make sure that people that are not shoveling their walks will start shoveling their walks. And they changed it to 24 hours in case the snow stopped. 12 hours, depending on when the snow stops, you may have to shovel it in the dark, which is not safe. And so I will be supporting this.
Thank you. Any further comments? Seeing none, please vote.
All votes been cast. Let the record show 5 ayes and 2 nays, the 2 nays being Mayor Olson and Member Cuesta.
Thank you. Next, did you get that? Thanks. Next is agenda item 11. It's B, or 11A2, which is CB 25. Could I have a, no, I don't know why I'm trying to rush through this. So tonight we have staff recommending City Council approve a bill for ordinance amending Title IV in order to require universal business licenses. And our Finance and Administrative Services Director, Maria Sabata, is here, as well as Heather at
Driscoll.
Which one's presenting?
I will. This is a topic.
Can you pull it closer?
Yeah, I forget about that. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
This is a topic that we have discussed many times in study session, and so I will stand for questions.
Thank you. Any questions for staff? Seeing none, could I have a motion to approve? Oh, Member Cuesta does.
I believe we discussed this prior. Will this require, certainly it'll require additional staff time. And how is that going to be just handled by existing staff?
So when we discussed it, at this point, we've decided to allow for a 12-month amnesty period. So we want to see how the volume increases to determine what staffing level would be required. Ideally, for the incremental over this next year, I'd like to ask the staff that we currently have to facilitate this, along with some assistance from other members within our organization, until we have a better idea to see what the appropriate level of staffing would be required.
So for the first 12 months, it's anticipated current staff will absorb the additional duties associated with this?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Member Berentine.
How much, I know you said that in here, that under the analysis on page 2, that the additional language in the ordinance that is highlighted states establish rules and regulations for de minimis sales and use tax license, an alternative license applicable to commercial entities grossing less than $30,000 annually and or requiring less than $30,000 of goods and subject to use tax annually. Such license allowing for reduced application procedures and exemption from sales and use tax audit requirements. Have we determined what the de minimis sales tax is for the under 30,000?
You're asking for the amount of tax on a $30,000 tax bill? Is that what?
Would it go from? Would it be different? Would it be 30,000 and under? That's what I'm reading this as, is a de minimis tax that would be for businesses under 30,000 annually or acquiring less than 30,000 of goods, or do you have some other formula?
There is no other formula.
So then what is the amount of minimum tax that somebody would pay for 30,000 and under?
It would be, sorry, just double checking my number. It is $1,050. Is what 3.5%, which is our city sales tax rate, is on 30,000. So as soon as they hit that $30,001, then they would be liable.
So is my understanding that the ACE committee had requested that there be a minimum so that there be a different license and a different handling of this, and that really, how are you going to know when they hit 30,000? Do they have to provide you with their books?
What we are going to do is have an affidavit where they have to provide their federal tax return, and with that, they have to sign an affidavit that they are at that threshold, and we will review their tax return, and then we expect them to let us know when they
do hit that, above that number. And should we, in the course of conducting audits of other businesses, come to the suspicion that they have hit that threshold and not contacted us, then we would reach out to them to have a discussion regarding their de minimis tax license with us.
But your discussion and reaching out is generally called an audit, isn't it?
No, not in this case. Okay. It would simply be that they need to revise their license and get a standard sales and use tax license with us.
So if you came under suspicion that they were over the 30,000, you would just ask them, are you over the 30,000?
Yes, ma'am.
And you'd believe them?
If they claim it's not the case, then like I said, we anticipate on asking them to bring in their federal tax returns. Mm-hmm. And should they not want to provide their federal tax returns, then we would request that they get a standard sales and use tax license with us where they would not hit these exemptions listed here below in the analysis section.
Mm-hmm. So there is no auditing at all of any business that's under 30,000, except for when you think that they've gone over the 30,000.
That is correct.
Okay, because all it says here is that there were use audit requirements, but it seemed like there were different requirements for them. So what section of it, I missed the section where it says that under 30,000, they are exempt from any audit. What section is that where it says that?
This is on page 4.
Okay.
It says they are exemption from sales and use tax audit requirements.
As long as they can prove to you that they're under 30,000?
Yes.
So there is no business that would not be required potentially to provide you with their tax return? Every business would have to do that in order to prove to you what section they're supposed to be in.
That is only if a business is requesting a de minimis sales and use tax license with us. Mm-hmm. But we're anticipating that be a pretty minimal number of businesses. Mm-hmm. And so if somebody is wanting that, then they will have to go the step of providing their federal tax returns. Everybody else will just go the normal route of getting licensed with us, where we don't request the tax returns.
All right.
Thank you. I have a question about the process. This is fairly common in other cities. We're not doing anything that much out of line with what other cities are doing, right?
That is correct, except for we are going above and beyond with this $30,000 threshold to be accommodating to small and home-based businesses based off the commentary that we've received from ACE and public comment on June 10th.
Thank you. That was an important point to actually make. Thank you for making it. Member Barentine, one more time.
I did want to correct with ACE because it is listed in here, and I asked several of the members that they identified as if they were in support of this, but they also had some other problems that weren't identified in here, so I just wanted to make that clear. I mean, they weren't wholesale for every business, including ones that were small businesses or home businesses being put into this, although they did say they'd like some of the small businesses that are retail to be recognized, but I just wanted to make that clarification, that's all.
Okay. I have a motion to approve 11A2 CB25.
I move to approve agenda item 11A2, Council Bill 25.
I'll second.
Thank you. Any further conversation? Member Barentine first.
I'll not be supporting it. I think this is just wholly overreaching here. And I understand that it's in the attempt to just make more money. And I think that we're going to discourage a lot of the entrepreneurial, office-based, home-based businesses and put them a little behind the 8 ball on both trying to keep up with the accounting piece of this and trying to avoid the audit people. One of the things that you say in here is that this is not a new tax, but it is a new tax. It's always a new tax. If somebody isn't being taxed currently, and then you do regulation that taxes them, that includes them then in having to submit, it's a new tax. So I'll not be supporting it. I think it's going to cause some problems for our community that are unintended consequences. So thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Russell.
Yes, I have a letter here that one of my citizens, I'm going to pass it down to council, and there's a copy there for the city clerk also. And I'm going to read this letter because this is very troubling to me, and this is exactly what this is about. And it's called Notice of Office Closure. Dear patient, as a patient of ours, we are committed to keeping you updated on the latest changes in office availability around your area, so you may have the opportunity to visit us and experience better hearing. I am writing to inform you that affordable hearing centers in Englewood, Colorado will be closing effective Thursday, August 29th. This did not come out till after they closed. Due to the deterioration of the area around the Englewood office and the fact that we strive to give you the very best hearing care possible, we have decided to close the Englewood office. We are offering you 3 exceptional offices where you will experience the same quality of care. We look forward to seeing you in one of our following affordable hearing centers listed below. There are other businesses in this city closing because the city isn't taking care of the business community. And now we're sticking out our hand again. We want more from you. I cannot support this. We are driving businesses out of this city. Thank you.
I am looking this up because my understanding when I saw this letter was that it was not in the actual city proper, but perhaps it is. Thank you. Councilmember Cuesta.
Thank you. Well, and I'm seeing in the Englewood Parkway, Unit K. So it looks like it would have been near here. I'm also not seeing this as related to this particular matter at hand, although needless to say, that doesn't lighten the message within it. I will be supporting tonight, and I am primarily in the wake of ACE. I know the council member, Barentine, said she heard a member say something not in support of it. They have not come out formally against it. Chamber of Commerce didn't say anything. And I would disagree with the notion that a tax you haven't paid yet, that's always been a tax in existence, is a new tax when you're required to pay it. I think that is a strange definition of new tax, and so I don't see this as a new tax. It's a tax that's always been there. There's some folks that haven't paid it up to this point, and our finance department has brought some businesses to light that have, it's been hundreds of thousands of dollars, and it's just to even the playing field that everybody has to play by the same rules and pay the same taxes, and I don't think that that's an unfair burden. I think that is basic commerce. So I will be supporting tonight. Thank you.
Any further comments? If not, please vote.
And actually,
right.
I just wanted to make a statement on, I believe that there are people evading taxes to hundreds of thousands of dollars. I don't believe that's use tax. I believe that is probably retail sales tax. And requiring every small business in the city to have to register. There's pluses to some of this. It would be great to know, but there are unintended consequences, and I don't think it's wise.
Member Barentine.
We have a lot of medical and a lot of service businesses going on. Asking people to pay $25 to get a license for a service business that was not required before is a new tax. It is not a unique way of explaining it or defining it. It is a new tax. They are not required to pay the use tax the way we are doing it because they have already paid tax on the material that they have, and now they have the extra burden to account for something that they bought outside of the city or in the city for use tax that they would not have had to be responsible for paying the city. Now, I appreciate our auditor's unique definition of it and interpretation of it, as many municipalities are doing today. And what they're doing is they're driving businesses out of their city. I want to at least respect the couple of business owners that have come here tonight who do know how burdensome this will be to them, how difficult this is going to be, especially when you're doing a service business, doing something out of your home, and they have made it clear, as several other businesses have that are a little larger, they get a little tired of being nitpicked like this with these types of audits, and it does open it up, and it starts opening somebody home up to being audited. It's not a comfortable situation for them. So out of respect for that, regardless of which way this goes, at least I understand where you're at with this. Another $1,050 to a home-based business for anything going down under that, having to come to the city and start showing your tax returns to them when you didn't have to before because it wasn't required, is onerous, and it puts a severe burden on them. So I am sorry for the, I think we're going to lose a lot more than the $500,000 to $750,000 that they think they're going to get.
Thank you. I think we have a motion and a second, don't we?
Yes.
So let's please vote.
All votes have been cast. Let the record show 5 ayes and 2 nays, the 2 nays being Mayor Pro Tem Russell and Councilmember Barentine.
Thank you. Next agenda item is 11A3, CBs 37 and 38, the Hive on Broadway planned unit development. Staff recommends City Council approve a bill for an ordinance for the Hive on Broadway planned unit development and schedule second reading for September 16th, 2019. Staff, Community Development Planning Manager Wade Burkholder and Planner 2 Eric Sampson are here to answer further questions and any further presentations. I could stop at this point and say, it is 9 o'clock. Would you all like to do this or take a quick 5-minute, 10-minute break?
I'd like to do this.
Nobody wants a break? Great. We'll keep going.
Good evening, Mayor Olson and members of City Council. Tonight at first reading, you have before you 2 different ordinances at first reading for the Hive on Broadway PUD. The one ordinance is exactly what the Planning and Zoning Commission referred to you in terms of conditions. And the second ordinance before you further clarifies with a good number of questions at the public hearing related to residential uses. It does spell out in the ordinance that should any residential component be included as part of the site plan, that the process would have to start at the beginning. So it would begin with the neighborhood meeting, Planning and Zoning Commission public hearing, and then City Council approval of that change to the site plan. A little bit of lesson again is that a PUD does require both a district plan as well as a site plan. You have to have both in order to have an approved PUD. So if you don't, the district plan really is the written portion of what the site plan should allow. The current applicant is seeking to keep all of the underlying uses in the MUB2 zone district with the addition of up to 60,000 square feet of self-storage units. So we have that language reflected on the face of the plat that should any changes occur that are considered major changes, which again, a residential component would trigger the major change to the site plan conditions, that would trigger the new review of the site plan from the very beginning. So we're trying to build into the ordinance some assurances that should residential at some point be what's happening on this parcel, then it would come back through the process. We have, again, that language defining what a major change is included in the face of the district plan. And we have if you remember, a variance to the drainage criteria, which is specifically tied to this PUD and the layout and the uses of the property. So again, we're trying to point out that should residential development occur, again, it would come back through the process. Again, voting for approval of this PUD would help further the adaptive reuse of the site. The trigger point for the PUD is the self-storage. All other uses proposed are considered by right uses. And having said that, I'll entertain any questions, clarifying comments you might have with regard to the application.
Great, thank you for that. Any questions? Councilmember Berentine.
The site plan is drawn off of the PUD district plan.
They need to be
not together, they are subservient to each other. I mean, that is the child.
Right.
The site plan is the child of the PUD development. If it's in the PUD development,
the district plan.
It can make a child, and the child can have what's in that district plan. And my concern was that the district plan allows for 80 units in the PUD. The district plan PUD allows for 80 units per acre, and I was told that that would be taken out. So I understand that it can go back to the MUB2, and the MUB2 allows that, correct?
Residential uses?
Yes, okay. But the PUD is happening because they want the storage. So we can make a concession that the PUD would be dependent, that allows the storage, isn't going to allow the residential in the PUD. So I'm confused that when you say that the development plan, the site plan, if there's any change to the site plan, but the PUD development plan has the residential in it, there would be no future council that could possibly go ahead and deny that PUD keeping the storage and doing the residential because the development plan has the 80 units in there. That's what I'm struggling with.
The site plan, as the one ordinance is written, if there is any residential use at some point proposed, it, yes, would have to go back to the beginning. And the site plan could be denied based on whatever reason, and therefore you don't have a PUD.
What reason could it be denied on under the PUD development as it currently sits? Could residential be denied under the PUD development or district plan that we're approving because that district plan has 80 units per acre in it?
There may be drainage issues that 80 dwelling units per acre could not be built on the site. There could be other technical reasons. You know, the property is bound by the ground lease, which in the current ground lease for the next 52 years, the building really can't, you know, be changed. So there's any number of technical reasons that residential may not work. Mm-hmm. We have to remember also that if there were residential, you know, proposed for this site, they wouldn't need a PUD. So they're going through this process to have self-storage, whereas they wouldn't need to if they really planned on having residential. So, you know, there's a lot of what ifs that, you know, residential, you know, may not work on the site. You know, in the future, there mightn't be some other requirement city council adopts that would, you know.
Is there any other plan where you've ever seen ground leases, including property that the city has owned, where these ground leases got changed, say like City Center, where some lawyers come in and people come in and negotiate and they change the ground lease? I mean, is that a possibility that that could happen?
Possible, I suppose.
It is. So. Okay, thank you.
I think it's Councilmember Quest is next.
Thank you. My question is for City Attorney Brown. You sent out this email earlier that kind of went over some of the questions that were asked at the last meeting. And the one that I come back to is here's the question. The same guarantee that the people who went to the community hearings got that there would be no residential. The current site plan specifically puts 80 units of residential properties in the site plan. Availability for some written legal assurances that the PUD won't later result in a 5-story apartment complex on top of the Kmart property. And the response from City Attorney's Office was that, in addition to stating the limitations on the face of the plat, the City Council may approve the POD subject to conditions limitations provided on the face of the plat. To avoid any argument that the language on the face of the plat does not limit the introduction of, or does not limit the introduction of residential units, 211 can be amended to specifically include an understanding that residential units would constitute a major change in character and they would have to come back before council. And I guess then that would lead me to the applicants. Well, I guess I'll stick with you for the time being, City Attorney Brown. If we were to make that amendment, if council were to agree to such an amendment and we want to put that forward, do we then, it starts the process over?
No. The way your code is written, minor changes or conditions can be incorporated into the ordinance by the City Council. So moving the language from the face of the plat into the ordinance and clarifying, and I use the same language that the developers used when they made their presentation, clarifying that the first statement on the face of the plat having to do with site plans included residential units. Incorporating that into the ordinance is not a significant change, and it can be done. That's fine for you to do it. And that's exactly what Council Bill 38 does, is it incorporates that change. So if you went with Council Bill 37, you just stick with what's on the face of the plat. If you go with Council Bill 38, you've incorporated the language from the face of the plat directly into your ordinance.
Thank you. So as a follow-up question to that, they then decide we would like to add residential. So that has to come before whatever council is assembled at that time. To the questions that were just asked, Mr. Burkholder, you mentioned there could be a drainage issue or something. It sounds more substantial. What if the council just said the neighbors don't like it and we don't want residential there? Is that a good enough reason to deny it?
I think it's council's choice. I mean, if they feel they have enough justification, yes.
Very good. So, and this is the final part of it. So council says, well, yeah, we're going to deny it. It's still use by right. So can't they just build? That's where I get confused. It's use by right, but I feel like we've put in something of a barrier that they'd have to go through this process. We deny it, but then they just do it by right.
Currently, it's a use by right. So what they have done by bringing this forward as a PUD is they will be changing their zoning from the MU2B to the PUD zoning, and the PUD zoning has this set of limitations. So is it possible that they could come forward in 5 or 10 years, they figured out a way to pay off their ground lease, they figured out a way to move all of their drainage, all of the things get met, and they come forward to a council and say, hey, now we want the residential. Is it possible for a council to say no? If it's MU2B, it is much more difficult to say no than if it's a PUD. Now, I need you to hear my language, much more difficult. But the way that land is currently zoned to allow for those 80 residential units is not going away. So what would come back would be the full process on a site plan and all the things associated with the site plan, which would be the landscaping and whether or not there would be better transportation, or all the things that go into that would be discussed. And for example, if the council said, you want to put 80 units there, but you do not have the parking or the access to the property that would allow for that number of cars, and you're going to have to address X, Y, and Z elements, those could be more easily addressed through the PUD process and through the MU2B process. Whether or not it should ever have included residential, that issue is not before us. It's just, if you choose not to accept the PUD, it will remain MU2B.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
I think Councilmember Martinez was next.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to remind council and the public that one of the applicants in this PUD is a client of mine at my primary job, so I will be abstaining from voting on this matter.
All right, and we probably will need to vote on that. We did. We did, didn't we?
Well, I think
we don't have to.
No, you have not yet voted on that. Because you are the chair, you asked the whole body to vote. But according to Bob's rules, You are the one who accepts the abstention or does not accept the abstention.
I do.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. All right. Councilmember Barentine, I believe, is next, and the Mayor Pro Tem.
I want to make sure that we've made a big deal out of telling people that come and talk to a public that, you know, we can't accept anything, new information. These were what Councilmember Cuesta was referring to were answers that were asked during the PUD, and I need to make sure that the answers that were only provided to us at 1:25 p.m. today are put into the record somehow, because that becomes something that's going to affect the decision that we're making. Because this is clarification, this has to be made available, I hope, to the applicants and to the public as well, because it obviously is weighing on our mind and going to be part of the decision. So I don't want it to seem as if, you know, council members can do something we don't, or the staff can do something that we didn't tell the public that they could do. So will that be part of the?
Let me.
City Attorney, if you could address that, that would be helpful. Thank you.
Yeah. So it is absolutely fine for you to receive legal advice from your attorney. That is not additional facts. That is legal advice from your attorney. I did provide that to you, and all of those legal responses were responses to questions that Councilmember Barentine asked, and I was requested by Councilmember Barentine to make that information available. But it's the answers, I did not make them privileged. It's fine if legal advice goes into the record, that's no problem. But the answer to all four of the questions comes back to, this is the language on the face of the plat.
Right. My only concern in wanting to clarify that is to make sure, because normally this would have been put in as part of our council request and then available information that would have been available to the public so that they could have reviewed it Thursday over the weekend, and because it came so late, I just wanted to make sure that everybody knew what Councilmember Cuesta was referring to. The other is the clarification of that this is MUB 2, but it doesn't allow storage. What they're coming for the PUD is storage, some minimizing of the landscaping and the drainage variance. So if they put the residential on there, which they have every right to do right now, but if they put the residential into the PUD, then that becomes part of the site plan and part of the PUD development plan, the new zoning, and I would prefer that it was not in there. I think that it makes kind of a slippery slope. So what I'm asking is this, if they come back, and like the city attorney said, they could go ahead and they could come back and say, we want to put the apartments on there now. And if the council said, no, go back to your MUB2, whatever, but you don't have storage anymore because that becomes a conditional use. It's no longer part of the MUB2 that they would have had. It is part of the PUD. Is that what would happen?
I'm not sure.
If they made a decision to go ahead and put the residential on, and the storage is already there, because they're basically coming to this for the storage, because they've put everything else that an MUB2 could do, and then they wouldn't be allowed the storage. So what would they?
The PUD does contain the storage
right.
use, so under the PUD, they could still have the storage.
Right, but if they just wanted to get rid of that piece, I mean, they were talking about that they already have this zoning. So basically what was said before is correct. This isn't a PUD rezoning. They're just taking zoning and adding some stuff and cutting some other stuff out, like the drainage and the landscaping. But they kept everything from the pre-zoning. So it's not like any PUD I've ever done before, where they're doing a district and changing the whole thing. They said, we want to keep what it is, just add some storage.
Some uses, yeah.
Right.
Including the storage. Yeah.
Okay, so what would change that? Would the storage go away if they just decided to go back to MUB2 and do the 80 units? Could they do that?
If you denied the PUD, yes, they could do that.
Okay.
But if you approve the PUD, that becomes the new zoning district, with those uses included.
Right, including C, 3, which is 80 units per, and the fact that it's in the PUD still, correct? Okay, all right. Guess we didn't get past it.
Could I jump in it? But not without passing 38. I mean, 38 would actually require something more.
38 would state that if you do include the residential use, it would then go back through the process.
Right. And it could be denied.
Yes.
Yes. Member Russell.
I have some.
We're still on questions. Just want to remind us all.
We're still on questions. And so I guess my question kind of goes along with one of Councilmember Barentine's question. How does staff have the authority to change the process in midstream after the public hearing? The process before the public hearing was to make the decision based on all the recommendations of planning and zoning and all of that. But now, why do we have the process being changed? Because now we have 2 options that we can consider. We didn't have that information before.
Council does have the option of adding conditions to a PUD after the public hearing, and based on concerns that we heard at the public hearing, we are suggesting adding that language to provide protection against residential.
Council has that authority.
Yes.
But council didn't come up with this decision.
Well, that is true. However, we're just presenting it as an option. You can change the language. You can add another condition. This is just an option for you to consider.
Which is problematic because it's additional information since the public hearing.
Mayor Olson, if I could.
If you would please, go ahead.
I do want to clarify that I did ask for us, based on the questions that we received during the public hearing and some of the comments that were made, I felt like council was really leaning towards something, an option that had no residential. And so I did ask staff to provide 2 different options for ordinance. One, just as it was presented by the Planning and Zoning Commission and staff, and one with the option of making the residential portion a little more difficult in that it would have to come back to council in order to add the residential. So that was my decision.
Are you finished? With your questions? Are you finished with your questions?
Yes.
Okay. I have a question for the city attorney. That process you feel comfortable with, that we can do that? Come back with the 38 as an option?
Absolutely. Your code allows you to make minor changes or to put conditions on the applicant. And these aren't new. This is the information that was already presented. But it makes people who don't want to go back and read all of the face of the plat and all of that, I think it makes them more comfortable to see that council's pulled that language directly out and put it within the council bill. So you're not imposing additional actual conditions on the applicant by including this in your ordinance. You're making it more visible to the public so that they'll see what these limitations are. And yes, it's absolutely legal.
Thank you. Councilmember Barentine.
I'm not sure I stated the question before well, so I'm going to try again. If they come and do residential, which is in the PUD, and they go to do the residential, and maybe the city manager can ask, since he redid this 38, or you can, would that vacate the PUD altogether? Because what I'm concerned about is that a future council is still going to be going under the parameters of the PUD development district, and it's allowed in the district. So it wouldn't violate the PUD. It would just be what's already in the PUD. They wouldn't even need to go back to the MUB3. It's already all in the PUD. So they wouldn't be violating anything in the PUD. So the only thread we have here right now is that, and I'm just saying it, just correct me if I'm wrong, that we have this storage that they want, and and from what we've seen from other areas in town, storage comes and then residential seems to follow. There were issues that were brought up at the community meeting. There were some comments that were made that residential would be coming that made the community nervous. And they were guaranteed at the community meetings and at this public hearing that there would be no residential. So how do I make sure that this PUD then is null and void if they go to do residential? Because it's what they've promised.
The PUD would not,
okay.
Vacating the PUD would take a separate action, so if that would not be the case if they proposed residential.
But it's your belief that under, or at least the city manager's belief, that under what he's changed, that it would just make it more difficult. But it certainly wouldn't, I mean, I'm pretty sure their attorney would be able to go and argue that this PUD allows them to do the residential, and they would still be able to have the storage, and that's what I'm concerned about.
The city council would have that decision to make if that in the future would happen.
And just show me how that could happen with this, because I'm not seeing it. I see a district plan that allows it. I see the site plan that you're saying is giving me some security, but it is based off the district plan, and the district plan already allows in what we would be voting unless we take the residential out of the PUD.
Again, if I go back to there might be drainage issues, there might be parking issues with residential. There's a lot of, you're still going to have to landscape. You're going to have to meet all those other areas of the code for a residential project.
Aren't those all already in the PUD right now? It's fine. That's okay.
Councilmember Cuesta?
I just want to make sure I'm understanding this correctly as well. There has been a proposed site plan that does not include the residential. We were saying that we would change that language 38, that if that residential was added, it would constitute a major change, and that's where it's explicitly stated. And that would trigger the change to the site plan, that major change that would put it back before this council. And at that time, it would be council's discretion, it sounds like, that it could be on something like drainage, more systematic, or maybe that the neighbors just don't like it, that council could say no. Now, that then kicks it back into maybe they vacate the PUD entirely. But am I understanding that correctly?
Yes, that's correct, what you said.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. That was a helpful clarifying question again. Council, could I have a motion to approve 11A3? Well, we need to decide whether to do CB 37 and 38. Maybe we approve both? How does that work? No, we have to pick one. One or the other. So
a quick point of information, do we have 7 people voting on this, or do we have 6?
we have 6. So I will allow Councilmember Martinez, on the basis that her client is here tonight, that she can recuse herself.
I move to approve 11A3, CB 38.
Could I have a second?
I'll second.
All right. Could we have a discussion
Who
around
was the
this?
second?
Wink.
It was Councilmember Wink, sorry.
Thank you.
So let's hear some discussion about this so we can have a good, robust, informed vote. Councilmember Barentine is first.
I sat through the entire 2 community meetings, and people were promised that there would be no residential in here. And then I got a PUD in front of me that not only has specifically the residential put into the PUD, but also the keeping of the original zoning as well. And we had the attorney stand up and say last time, no, put it in writing, no residential. And I don't believe that that's happened. And so people would have come with pitchforks and torches if they thought residential was going to go on there. And to tell people that it's not, to try to get them to go away I think is unconscionable. I was very supportive of all of this as long as the residential was there. I think we saw that even in the headline for the newspaper, no residential, no to residential, yes to retail. That's what everybody was starting to believe. But what I would be voting on would be 80 units per acre. And not only is it there, but it's specifically in the PUD, the way that it is uncomfortable. The site plan is the child of the larger overarching rules for the development district, and I think that we're misleading in the future because it won't be this council, it'll be somebody else, and they're going for our guidance, and all I think we're doing is confusing this, and I'm just really not supportive of this, and it's unfortunate because I was.
You finished?
I'm finished.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem.
The Kmart site is the last significant sized piece of commercial real estate in the city of Englewood in a prime location. And storage units are an underutilized use of this property and not in the best interest of the city. We have seen from testimony at the public hearing that the use of storage units is diminishing. I am very concerned that we are settling for something less. I kind of feel like this is what they've done everywhere else. We have an opportunity to do something unique and significant with the Kmart site. And I agree, the people do not want more density. So I cannot support this. And I am very concerned that that this council didn't have this discussion on our own and come to the conclusion that we wanted to deal with the residential piece. That is very concerning to me. It's like we let somebody else make our decisions for us. Thank you.
Member Cuesta.
This is a tough one. I think that storage wasn't the first choice of many folks there, but I think it's a distant second to residential. And I think that saying no to this PDU, it only opens up the door for residential. I think that this gives us a slight barrier with 38, at least one more step. I mean, we could say no, and this is the end of it, and they don't find other tenants. I mean, to me, what's to keep them from going residential? In my opinion, I think that the housing market and commercial development is starting to soften just a bit. That has sat there for 2 years, and we have not had anything come along. Is the answer to let it sit there 4 more, 8 more, 10 more? I don't see the outlook improving on that site, truth be told. This, to me, is probably, I think it blocks residential, at least for the time being, and I have a different read on it. I think that this would be the major change if we use 38. It explicitly states they'd have to come back before council, and I'm with you. I doubt it would be this council, and so it would be incumbent upon the next group or whichever group that was to determine if they wanted it or not. But to me, it does something with that site, which, again, people are not banging down the door to put something else there. Thank goodness for Choose, and they're a tremendous business, but there are very few businesses these days that need that much space. I am inclined to support this. Certainly, I'm thinking at least on this first round, and then that gives me a couple of weeks to think about it. But I am inclined to support it because I think it blocks residential, where if we don't have a PUD there, it's open season for residential. And I think it does something with the site, which is desperately needed. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Sierra.
I will be in support of CB 38 tonight. The fact that there were a couple of citizens that actually did change their opposed vote to in favor of the vote just because they did want some language during the public hearing about no residential use, and so we're doing that with CB 38. I'm echoing a lot of the comments that Member Cuesta stated in terms of what use has come from the Kmart site. The fact that we do have there is a lot of building that many sites can't take advantage of it. I know that we can say that there's other businesses that would want to use that space, but we haven't seen it come forward in quite some time. The other aspect of this is that the storm drainage system that they're going to be putting in place is an improvement from what is in place today. So they are going to be fixing that aspect. And obviously, it's an issue that we've been talking about quite a bit. And so we are going to be seeing an improvement with a 25-year pipe, basically, or the equivalent of a 25-year pipe, including the water quality improvements that we're going to see from it. So I will be in support of this CB 38 tonight, and yeah, ready to vote.
Thank you. Councilmember Wink.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Member Cuesta, for stating a lot of what was in my mind. I too am concerned about the vacancy of that property and the current state of it, the lack of appeal, what it means to passersby, to those who aren't constituents necessarily of Englewood proper. And love the renderings and the ideas and the thoughtfulness that's been presented. I'm not concerned. I'm in support of 38. The residential piece, I think, has been explained to me sufficiently. So thank you, Mr. Burkholder. I'm absolutely in support of it, of 38 tonight. I think it would be a vast improvement to that location.
You finished?
I am finished.
Thank you. Councilmember Barentine?
I wish I had had a little bit more time with the 38 piece of it to see whether it's really going to allay my fears with the way that the PUD district is being done and the site plan underneath it, and whether that would actually ever really stop anything. I'm not sure that this council wants to take maybe the time to examine that a little bit more. If there would be a little bit of delay, I could at least see whether you, Mr. Attorney, were willing to go ahead and back up the statement that was made at the public hearing so that I know that I could go to my constituents and be assured that what's happening here with this PUD and allowing this storage, which I have no problem with. I don't have a problem with the storage, and I'm very grateful that even from the community meetings, you heard the community and said they wanted a limit put on that storage to 60,000 square feet, and you did it. And so everything that I heard from those meetings, I was really happy with. I think that you have a lot of excitement on that site. You made it very clear at the community meetings that there were several entities that wanted to go in there. They were fighting each other because we are all a fit community and want to make sure that we keep in shape and choose one. And you're across from Williams Jewelers, and you're across from another shopping center that's doing very well, including tearing down a McDonald's because they can do better than that. So we have a lot of excitement and a lot of awesome businesses going in that area, so I don't think you'll have as much trouble getting some tenants as you might believe. However, the residential piece was such a sticking point here, and the way that I read it and the time that I've spent going over PUDs and seeing things that have happened in the past with other ones is that I know that the governing document is the district information, and that if you agree that there isn't going to be any residential and we have some vehicle for that, then I would be fully in support of this. I would be fully in support of what you promised this community if I can make sure to guarantee that that's what's going to happen. Maybe I'll just do it I'll give it a little bit more time with 38 or whatever they're going to do, but I think we're going to have some continued problems with this. At this point, I still can't support it, but I hope you understand that I agree. I appreciate the work that you've done so far with it. I just want what you promised to be what we're voting on. And I don't think I'm just not secure with that at this point.
You're finished? Yes. Mayor Pro Tem Russell?
Thank you. The one argument that the site is really run down and there's no hope for it if we don't do this, I don't believe that's true. I do believe that Williams Jewelers made a huge move. The site across the corner where they moved over to was a mess for years, and timing is everything. I'm not unhopeful, and I am encouraged about the things that you do want to do, but I also am very concerned about the density. We are a home rule charter city. We are heavily reliant on retail sales tax. We need commercial in that area because property tax is not going to fix our problems. And so I was disappointed that with the plan. So anyway, I cannot support it at this point in time. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm supportive of this tonight, and particularly 38. I want to thank our city manager and our staff for coming up with something that we didn't have to toss around here forever and ever and trying to figure out language that made it make sense so we could actually make a decision on this that had good legal sound advice behind it. I think my reservation on this site all along, and I think some of you knew this, was actually the storage, not the residential, because I knew you couldn't make it on the residential. But I have had so many storage people call me and tell me not to approve it because they thought we were over storaged. And then when I started to look at some of the data, both on my own and then what you all presented in the public hearing after I'd done some research, that this is a different site, and I cannot legally sort of decide who can and who can't do some sort of business. If I have a certain coffee shop I love in Englewood and everyone knows which one it is, and there's another one that goes in down the street, I don't have the right to say that can't happen. Plus, the one that I do love thinks it's good for their business to have competition, so I'm not a business person. So I actually, I'm not a big fan of storage, but I think if it makes it work, that building is so cavernous, I don't see how else it can be. I went to Choose, I did a complete tour to get a sense of the volume of that place. It's amazing that one entity actually found some repurposing of that building. I can't imagine anything else doing it unless it's a big box, and we know that's an area that's down the tubes right now. I do like 38 because it does allow some possibility for changes in the future, but it makes it come back to council. And I have been on council for 10 years. We've done a couple PUDs. I've done one very significantly in my neighborhood, my district, where we held held people's feet to the fire. And I've yet to seen a PUD where someone snuck something like, oh, we're doing residential now into it. That has just never happened. Have materials changed on buildings a little bit? Yes, but within the parameters. Do I think aesthetics changed than what we might have thought of? Yes, that's changed, but not the central sort of purpose of the building. And I feel comfortable with this in terms of making it a revitalized area. So I'll be voting yes on it. And I appreciate the work that's been done. It's been a long haul. I also visited all the businesses in that area before the public hearing a little bit. I didn't get any sense from them one way or the other what they wanted. So it was really odd. I don't know if that was your case as well. It was like, I just don't want any more crime here. They're more concerned about just having something there that was revitalizing the area for them. So I think this does it. At this point in time, it's the best decision and the highest use of the land right now. And hopefully in the future, if it needs to change, council will have good citizen input in deciding what that best and highest use is in 20 years from now. All right, it looks like we're ready to vote. Council, a yes vote is yes for 38. 38. Correct? Yep. Please vote.
All votes have been cast. Let the record show 4 ayes, 2 nays, and 1 abstention. The 2 nays being Mayor Pro Tem Russell and Councilmember Barentine, and the abstention being Councilmember Martinez.
Thank you. We'll see a second reading for this on September 16th. Thank you very much. The next agenda item is 11C1, resolution and motions. Resolution to approve 2018 supplemental appropriation. Staff recommends City Council approve by resolution this appropriation of the 2018 budget. And our Finance and Administrative Services Director, Maria Sabata, is here to answer questions.
Good evening, Council. We have had an opportunity to talk about this particular item before, so I will leave it open for questions.
Mayor Pro Tem.
So why does it take 2 years to figure out that we need to do a supplemental appropriation?
Actually, in the memo, it states that, well, this is for 2018, and in the memo, it states that we typically wait until the audit has been conducted to present this. CAFR, right? Yes, an audit of the CAFR, to make sure that all entries have been posted, to make sure that we're bringing you correct information. This particular item is delayed versus previous years for multiple reasons. Primarily, we've had it moved from study sessions because you had other orders of business, and then it was taken off the agenda, I believe, almost a month ago now, so it's back on. So it is for 2018.
Oh, but I guess my question is, on all of the whereases, it was approved in 2017, oh, right, in October, the budget.
So the budget was originally, yes, it was.
Okay.
for the year 2018. However, what we're asking you to vote on tonight impacted 2018, and that information did not become available until after the audit was completed and reported out in June to council.
Does that happen real often, that you miss it, or it shouldn't? Should you be able to catch the appropriations before the audit ever comes out?
So we were aware of the fact that the expenditures within these departments were higher before the audit was done, but we typically, and it's a policy within finance, we typically wait until the audit is completed so that we make sure there are no other entries. That certainly is something that we could have a discussion about in the future if you would choose.
Thank you.
Member Barentine.
It's what you just said, I think, stated it pretty well, that as a policy, you wait until the audit comes through and do that. And I think that we need to know as it's going on. This council can make a decision to the budget at any time during the year to go ahead and cut a budget, change a budget, move money. That's up to the council to do that. But we don't know what we're supposed to be doing if we're not informed. So I think that that's the city manager's obligation, is to make sure, as well as with your information being provided, that this council is kept abreast of what's going on. Part of this is a staff person. I mean, so they would have known, you know, there would have been previous information.
Barentine, do you have a question? And then we can move into discussion. You can go further into that.
Okay. So part of this was part of this was a staff person, so you would have known that. So to Council Member Mayor Pro Tem's issue there, I don't know how you couldn't have known. So why didn't it just come to council at the time that those decisions were being made? Because the issue at hand here is that decisions got made about the money, and then this policy of waiting doesn't seem to make sense to me, given our charter and our responsibility as council.
May I respond?
Yes, please do. That's a question for you.
So I think in these particular situations, these dollars that we're asking you to approve as part of the supplemental are part of the unassigned balance that existed at the end of the year. And part of the reason that happens is that staff is trying to manage within the budget that you've appropriated. And when we made the change and decided that this individual would work under HR versus finance, HR wanted to see if they could absorb the additional cost without coming back. It's not something we can't do, but we don't have a status of the budget at that time. So it's almost incomplete information at that time. So I want to emphasize again that this wasn't an incremental appropriation of funds. We were well within and below our expenditure budget last year. This is a switch between departments. So I don't know if that answers your question, but hopefully it does.
But that's the issue, is that somebody within their department can certainly go ahead and use their funds within their department however they see fit after the budget has been approved. It is the actual having it be between the departments that should have been brought to council. I mean, is that what you're saying? Is that it?
It's my understanding that the city manager can approve FTE shifts within departments.
As long as the money doesn't move with them? Is that the current city manager's understanding?
You are here to approve an increase in the HR budget that you approved in 2017 for the 2018 budget. That's what you're being asked to approve. You aren't being asked to approve a resource shift because it was more efficient for that individual to work within that department.
And Mayor Olson.
Go ahead, Manager.
I think the point is very well taken, and certainly you all have to approve those movements between budgets. And so in the future, I give you my assurance that that will be our MO. I will note that Maria was coming into the organization at this time, but it is our intention and my assurance to you that we will be bringing these to you when those decisions are being made. Not necessarily a movement of people, but we definitely will inform you if the movement of people involves a budget transfer.
Okay, so and you weren't, I agree, you weren't here to do that. It was somebody else's decision to do that. The problem is that at this point, we have to approve it because it was already done. So we kind of are a little bit, is that correct? I mean, the money's basically already been spent. It would be foolish for us not to just do this. And I'm just trying to get the policy piece. So thank you for the work you did on it. It wasn't your decision, I get that. You're the messenger, and I don't want to shoot the messenger, but I also want to make sure that we're not setting a precedent that this is just a policy and that we wait till after the audit, and you've cleared that up. Thank you very much, City Manager. Thanks for the information.
I would like to get a motion to approve 11C1, a resolution to approve 2018 supplemental appropriation as provided.
I move to approve 11C1.
I have a second.
I'll second.
Okay, Member Wink, thank you. Any further conversation? Anybody else besides Member Barentine? Okay, go ahead. Go ahead, Member Barentine.
And just on principle, I can't vote for this. We've just gotten put in this position too many times where we've been behind the 8 ball. Too many times where people just come to us and go, you got to approve it because it's already done. And people asking forgiveness rather than permission has caused us a lot of problems. And just so, it's not you and it's not the position you got put in for this. I understand that. But on principle, I'm going to have to vote against this.
Any other comments? Seeing none, please vote.
All votes have been cast. Let the record show. 5 ayes and 2 nays, the 2 nays being Mayor Pro Tem Russell and Councilmember Barentine.
Thank you. Next up is the general discussion. Mayor's choice last week was a little less busy for me, but I did have a couple things I wanted to say. One thing, first of all, is about the budget and supplemental appropriations and things like that. I'm very confident in our city staff, and I think the kinds of information that we've been provided, particularly on the supplemental appropriation and other things where there have been shifts, has been very detailed, and I want to thank the financial department for that. It has been always fully open and transparent, and we've had this conversation so many times about needing to approve this as well as other things. I don't think anybody ever intends to surprise us with anything. Also, I did vote for the budget that we're talking about, and we've been way under budget, so having these things work better for staff and be better aligned with goals and actual skill sets of people is really important to me for a functioning work setting, and I appreciate when our directors figure that out and find better efficiencies, better use of people. Let's see, a second thing that I had tonight is that tomorrow night is the Englewood celebrating our city manager. So head on over to the Grand with a number of other folks if you want to introduce them to people in your areas that might come. And looking forward to that. I think that's it for me right now. Let's start. Who would like to start out tonight? Anybody in particular for council requests or council time? Oh, I said council request. I have one more thing to add to what Member Barentine had on the list of things that she suggested. And it has to do with the alleys. The 2 women that came forward on the 4700 block of Sherman, they were actually talking about alley paving. I don't believe it was just alley maintenance with gravel. So I would love to add on to this. I'm reaching out to them to explain what the paving policy is, because I think they may have misunderstood the actual alley mitigation kind of program that we have going on. So we need to inform them to help them understand that, because it is a pretty big difference between just grading alleys and paving them. So that would be one additional thing to that. Anyone want to start us off tonight? Councilmember Martinez.
Sure. I just want to remind everyone that this Saturday and next Saturday is the Keep Englewood Beautiful Household Hazardous Waste event from, I believe, 8 to 2. So if you have household hazardous waste you'd like to get rid of, feel free to stop by. It's at the South Platte, yeah. Yep.
Thank you. Same time as Be a Tool.
Yep.
Mayor Pro Tem, why don't we go next? We'll go down and we'll come back to you, Member Sierra.
Okay. I have nothing tonight.
All right, thank you. Member Wink.
No, nothing for me.
Thank you. Member Barentine.
I appreciate you adding that conversation that she said about paving the alley, but because they were bringing up damage to their vehicles, I believe making an assessment of it and at least having it graded or possibly mitigate the problem would be at least the minimum that we could do. But I appreciate adding on a little extra information there since they're both new members. We have gone round and round for getting information to each other and making it equitable so that we can get information to other council members. The city manager can email all of the city council, the city attorney can email all of the council, and then there's this big gap in there about how we do that. I have tried every which way, whether it's an email thing to try and do separate, and then I've come into compliance with every nuance that this council has come on, and it appears to only apply to me, and I'm getting frustrated with it. When council members are told that they can go ahead and put the information through the city manager and that it will be forwarded to the city council, and I have yet to have, except one, in the wording that I have provided to the rest of council. I don't know how we're supposed to all communicate with each other. Well, apparently, mine are being blocked. That's what I'm saying, is that other council members can go ahead and put information forward. I don't want mine reworded. I don't want it redone. I don't want it interpreted. I don't want it just out there and then with the answers. I think it's fair, once I've done the research or have a question or want to put something to all of council, that it be done in my words and just be forwarded to council. I don't know what the problem is. So if we could, if that's going to continue to be an obstacle, then we need to sit down and figure out a way to communicate with each other so that we can have the communication and all at the same time in the wording and the explanation that I am trying to put forward, so that we can. And if that's doing a portal, then we need to do a portal. But this nonsense has got to stop. It is getting frustrating, and I am so far the only one that isn't capable of having that happen, and I'm finding that very frustrating. That's all I have.
Thank you. Councilmember Cuesta.
Thank you. Immediately to respond to that, I haven't been given any special treatment. I don't know why you think that you've been treated in a singular way that nobody else has. And so I think that it's unfair for you to say that I feel like you're saying everybody on council but you is getting a certain manner of treatment, and I don't know what you're speaking to. I haven't had the same problems, nor have I been given any special treatment. So I think you paint with a broad brush. If you've had certain experiences, then they're direct to you. But to involve me and make it sound as though that I'm getting some sort of special treatment or anybody else is on council it is untrue. I mean, I have not, and you would have no evidence of that happening because it hasn't happened. So I would correct the record on that.
I apologize.
I have the floor. I have the floor.
He has the floor.
I have the floor. Thank you. I have the floor. Thank you.
Councilmember Barentine, let him have the floor.
Going back to the bulk plane, that was brought up again by Marcy Brown, and I think it's a subject that's come up over and over again. I brought it up during my meeting with you, City Manager Lewis, and I think maybe it's time to revisit it. I touched on this at the end of the last City Council meeting, and I'm thinking maybe the best way to do it would be to put in a council request just on the summary of how we've gotten to the city's current bulk plane rules, and then what avenues there might be to change them. And maybe there's various ways to go about that, but I think that's a conversation that council's ready to have, and I think it's one that citizens would at least appreciate us having as well. And I will leave it at that as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Sierra.
I would be happy to have that conversation about the bulk plan as well as all of Title 16, just different aspects of it. And I do think, obviously we could start with a council meeting or a study session, but it doesn't need to involve the public. So I'd be okay with that. I do want to give my thanks also to the South Platte Water Renewable Partners for their award of $50,000 for the Center Action Project. So that was great. The Englewood event tomorrow night, I should be there as well. So I plan on stopping by for permanent city manager, Sean Lewis, at that point and see some citizens there as well. And then the one aspect of it that was in your weekly council request that actually caught my eye was the fact that we got $5,000 from Walmart for the basketball rim. So I'm happy about that. Hopefully they're not the double rims that force you to make just a Swiss shot without using the rim. So I just thought that was pretty impressive. I'm not sure if we have a plan for where they're going to go in the parks, but yeah, I thought that was great. So thank you.
Thank you. City Manager's report. I think you've got some things for us tonight.
I do, and I apologize for the lateness of the night. I do have 3 items that I wanted to mention. One, we did have a problem yesterday evening, with all of the agendas that were posted in 3 of the 4 locations in the building being removed. And we do have video footage of that, so we'll look into what exactly happened there. We did get those back up today, so we think we're legal with our postings, the various boards and commissions, as well as City Council. And we are going to look at a process of potentially having to put those under glass, a locked glass. But I did want to make you aware of that in case you get comments from the public. We now know it was someone, not a city staff member, that took those down. Secondly, being sensitive to, I think, the point well taken by Mayor Pro Tem Russell about adding additional things that you didn't see in the first round. I am adding a few things to the budget. As you may know, we have had some improved financial information that's come to us in the form of improved or lowered health insurance costs, as well as some property tax increases that have allowed us to do some additional things that I think will meet your priorities, but those are going to be somewhat last-minute kind of additions. I have mentioned those in both of the items that I'm planning on putting. I mentioned those in the manager meeting last week, but we'll be giving you some more details in the next meeting we'll have on that before the public hearing. So you'll have at least 4 times to look at those, but I'm glad to talk to any of you and any resident or member of the community that wants to hear more about my ideas on that. Third and final is the portal, and Margaret in IT, our director of IT, has made great progress. I shared some of the, since the request came in from Mayor Olson originally, I shared with her some what that's looking like, which is a way for you all to share documents and information between you. Right now, they're now working on making sure that that's public information, that you all have kind of editing rights, but I explained that really this probably, in fact, it should be public information. But I'll also have some, I think, good resources like the current development map, just easy things that I think that you all are interested in, have expressed interest, that we'll have links to in that portal, which you can share with your constituents or anyone in the community. But I hope to have that something to roll out to you in draft form by the end of this week.
Thank you very much. City Attorney's report.
Yes, I have 2 things this evening. And the first is Mayor Pro Tem Russell stated earlier this evening that all sorts of things are said by members of the public about city council members that are not true. And I find that things are sometimes said about me that are untrue as well. Usually I don't respond because my role is to advise the council about the law, not to enter into discussions with members of the community. In this case, though, I think I do a disservice to the city council by not responding. The issue is short-term rentals, and short-term rentals have been an important issue to this city council, at least since members Cuesta and Wink were elected. Soon after member Cuesta was elected, we were in an open meeting, and he asked me whether the city code prohibited STRs. And I'm sure you remember that conversation, Member Cuesta. I wasn't comfortable responding to his direct question, but he was insistent. He wanted a yes or no. He needed to talk to his constituents. So I stated at that time, during that open meeting, that if I was required to state yes or no, my answer had to be no, they were not illegal. But if you'll go back and look at that, I clarified that the city attorney's office would continue to look for effective avenues forward. And Mr. Cuesta encouraged me to do so at that time. So after that meeting, I assigned one of the attorneys in my office to review the code and find language that would be applicable to short-term rentals, understanding our code was written long before short-term rentals were an issue. He found some language that was applicable to some short-term rentals, but not all, as you are already aware. He then met with the planning and zoning staff to walk them through what the process would be and to develop an enforcement method based upon complaints. Then I assigned him to be the special prosecutor to these complaints to assure they were handled in the most expedited manner. Ms. Williamson's complaints were some of the first to be addressed by planning and zoning, but several more complaints have also resulted in the issuance of citations. The prosecution process is not fast, and I think that frustrates people. They think we're not responding because something doesn't happen quickly. It's not a fast process, and it doesn't matter what the offense is. It takes some time. But the special prosecutor has received guilty pleas or convictions in several cases already, and a few more are still going through the court process. So we are, as a city staff, addressing short-term rentals. I'm very proud of the efforts of my staff to meet the policy agenda of the City Council and begin the efforts to address the short-term rental violations that exist within the city. So this is my shout out to my staff who've really worked hard, and they've taken a lot of punches because people don't understand how hard they're working. And you have an amazing staff at this city, just an amazing staff, and they continue to look for ways to make your jobs easier and to work with you. And I just can't say enough about how proud I am to work with the people here at the City of Englewood. Second note, I will be out of the office the rest of this week, and if you have an emergency, you can get in touch with Dugan Comer. Thank you.
Thank you very much. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Are you going tomorrow? Councilmember Wink, are you going tomorrow?